I wake up in a jail cell, curled in a corner, contemplating the three great questions of philosophy. Who am I? Where did I come from? And why does everything smell like mold and urine? The first thing I learn about my new world is the answer to question 3. This is a patrol detention cell, and the ambiance is included. The second thing I learn is that I'm getting executed in the morning. Let me back up. Yesterday, I was a programmer. Ordinary guy, ordinary overtime, revising a client's requirements at 2 in the morning until my chest decided it had filed enough tickets and shut the whole system down. I died at my desk. The universe looked at my life, said LOL, and dropped me into the body of a 20-year-old herbalist's son named Thane, in a kingdom that looks like Victorian Europe if Victorian Europe had a demon problem. And oh, it has a demon problem. Years ago, a red moon rose over this world and hung there, arm wrestling the sun for the sky. Since then, the nights belong to the monsters. People die without a wound on them, or with their heads politely separated from their bodies, or they just change, wake up one morning wearing their own face like a rented costume. The government has a special agency for this. This town doesn't. This town has one priest and a jail, which brings us to me, curled up in the corner of that jail, because 2 nights ago something called an evil spirit walked through my neighborhood and killed everyone in it. My family, my neighbors, the whole street. I'm the only survivor, and when they found me, I was too busy being freshly reincarnated to answer questions. So the local logic went, sole survivor, can't talk, obviously possessed, burn him. A fat patrolman with a beard like a dead hedgehog shoves a tray through the bars. Black bread with actual sawdust in it, and water in a cracked cup. He watches me chew and says, conversationally, that a possessed widow in the next village stopped recognizing her neighbors, and the captain and the priest have gone to handle it. Handle it. In this world, that word comes with kindling. Then he tests me. What's my name, officer? And I reach for this body's memories and find fog. The name is right there on the tip of a tongue that isn't really mine, and it will not come out. Seems there are no real survivors in this evil spirit business, he says, almost sad about it. Enjoy your last supper. Cool. Very cool. Day 2 of my second life, and I'm already on death row. I do the only thing a desperate man with someone else's memories can do. I go dumpster diving through them, and I find one image. This body once delivered little pink test tubes to this exact patrolman. Dad's special product. The kind of potion that helps a middle-aged man fight all night without, let's say, sagging morale. The goods I delivered recently, I blurt at his back. I made those. How were they? He turns around, slowly. And I watch a man's entire face renegotiate its position on my execution. That's the first law of this world, and I learn it in a jail cell. Nobody here believes in mercy, but everybody believes in a supplier. You'd better recover your memory fast, he says. When the priest gets back, he'll examine you. Examine. Kindling. Right. I slide down the wall, and that's when a translucent golden panel unfolds in the air in front of me, written in characters from my old world, visible to exactly one person in this universe. Farouk language, 376 out of 1000, level 1. You don't remember much of this language. Herbalism, 392 out of 1000. You can recognize common herbs, and by sheer luck, brew potions with low toxicity. Shooting, 106 out of 1000. You can pull the trigger skillfully. Whether you hit anything is not up to you. My cheat has arrived, and it has opinions. It's a proficiency wall, every skill I have, rated in numbers, and the numbers go up when I practice. I whisper a new word of the local language, feel it click into my brain with all its meanings attached, and watch the counter tick from 376 to 377. Some transmigrators get a sword that splits mountains. Some get a grandpa in a ring. I got a spreadsheet that rewards homework. You know what? Perfect. Because if there's one thing a dead programmer knows how to do, it's grind. The guard checks on me that night and finds the condemned prisoner sitting in the dust, writing words with his finger and muttering them like a madman. He decides that's harmless and goes back to sleep. By the time the fat patrolman, Kale, his name surfaces around midnight, along with the rest of this body's life, comes back, I've squeezed the memory sponge dry and I'm at 986 out of 1000. Not enough. Tomorrow, a priest is going to interrogate me, and I currently speak like a tourist with a phrase book, so I call Kale over and ask for my herbalism book. He looks at me like I've asked for a cake with a file in it. Your whole family just died, and you want to read? My family relied on my father, I tell him, heavy and slow. Now the ones still alive have to support themselves. Pause. Also, officers get 10% off my medications from now on. 30. Deal. But only 3 items a month at 30. 3 tubes it is, says Kale, and his smile goes somewhere I don't want to follow. He brings me the book and, unprompted, a kerosene lamp. Nobody in this world lifts a finger without profit, and honestly, I find that relaxing. A corrupt system is at least a predictable one. Tonight is destined to be sleepless. I have never worked this hard in either of my lives, and I say that as a man who died of overtime. By noon the next day, the wall reads, Farouk language, 1688 out of 5000, level 3. You have mastered this language. 1 day. I crammed a college entrance exam's worth of vocabulary in 1 day, in a jail cell, by lamplight, to avoid being burned alive. Motivation is a hell of a drug. The exam room turns out to be the church's underground chamber, and it is not subtle. White candles in a ring, 4 beefy patrolmen in the corners, an 8-pointed star drawn on the floor in silver powder, and in the middle of it, space for one possibly possessed me. Father Reese runs the show. Thin man, white robe, a gold plaque on his chest with a burning flame and a hammer inside it. the emblem of the Flame Lord, the god of choice in a kingdom where winter tries to murder you annually. The priest tells me to stand in the ceremonial circle, and on my way there, I stomp on the silver lines. Hard. Testing. The pattern doesn't smudge. Worth a shot. Thane Finn, he intones. As a child of God, you will receive holy baptism today. It's my pleasure, Father. Also, my name is Thane Rorick. A name is merely a symbol, says the priest, with the serenity of a man who has never once gotten a name right. Then the ritual starts, and I stop joking. Because the candle flames jump a foot high, the silver powder ignites into a lake of red light under my feet, and the priest presses his holy emblem to my forehead. It flares like a small sun, and black mist boils up off my body. Now, from Reese's side of the room, this is the moment where you find out the prisoner really is possessed, and you reach for the flail. But the mist just burns away. No monster, no screaming, just me, standing in the light with, and I quote his puzzled face, an expression of intoxicated enjoyment. Because that holy light feels like 2 shots of hot espresso injected directly into my soul. How do you feel? The priest asks, baffled. Full of energy. Father, could you do that a couple more times? Ha, says Father Reese. A sacred ceremony costs 50 gold shields. You've just received 2 baptisms. That's 100 gold shields. Would you like 2 more? I'm sorry, what? The man just performed an exorcism on me, found nothing, and is now handing me the bill. 100 gold shields. In a town where my family's life savings, buried under the stove in a clay pot, turn out to be 36. He even offers a payment plan. My interest rate is very low, only 0.05% per day. This is the town's spiritual shepherd. He heals your soul, then invoices it. And here's the part I only learn later, which makes it worse and better at once. The ritual isn't even called an exorcism. It's the holy baptism, a full immersion soak in divine power that purifies, strengthens, and elevates. A treatment so expensive that in the old days, ordinary nobles couldn't book it. The exorcism is a side effect. This backwater priest, on a suspicion, spent his tiny parish's annual budget of collected faith twice over on a herbalist's orphan, and then, being Reese, put it on my tab. As he explains, warmly, that without those 2 baptisms, the evil spirit's toxins would have festered in me until I became a mad villain. 100 gold shields for a brand new life, not expensive at all. I make a quiet, executive decision. I'm going to become a deadbeat. In my past life, I was law-abiding and terrified of owing anyone anything. And look where that got me. Dead at a desk. New world, new credit philosophy. That night, they cremate the dead. 18 people, 3 families, mine among them. The whole square fills with candles, because folks here believe candlelight lights the soul's road to heaven. I stand by the fire with my family's ashes in a black jar, and the strange thing is, the grief is real. I've absorbed all of this body's memories now. I know when this kid took his first steps. I know his father's laugh. Somewhere in the merger, his loss became mine. I cross my arms and pray for people I've technically never met and mean every word. Some things you don't joke about. This is one of them. Then the priest walks over and offers me a free night's lodging in the church gatehouse and follows it with a purification of my family home, also free, and I almost trust the man until I catch the subtext. Since you owe me a fortune, this one's on the house. Even his mercy is an accounting entry. Here's the thing about the gatehouse. It has a mirror. I fall asleep on a narrow bed with my family's ashes underneath it. Sometime deep in the night, my eyes open. My body sits up. My body walks to the mirror. And in the glass, only in the glass, my pupils stretch into vertical slits. Whiskers of black flesh sprout from my cheeks. And then the smoke pours out of my reflected ear and becomes an octopus. Tentacles, teeth, too many of both. It grips the mirror frame and climbs out of the glass like the world's worst birthday surprise, and my body just floats gently back to bed while the thing passes through the roof and out into the night. I remember none of this. I'm asleep for all of it. Outside, the church's magic bell, the one that rings whenever evil passes near, the one that cannot be silenced, chimes once and stops, like a hand closed around it. In the morning, I can barely stand. My limbs are cotton. My back aches like I've been unloading trucks all night. I tell the priest I feel drained, and he squints and mutters something about lingering corruption. Then I look up, see the bronze bell under the eaves, and ask why such a fine bell has no clapper. It doesn't need one, Reese says. It rings on its own when evil comes near, loud enough to wake the whole district. Behind him, the old gatekeeper goes very still. He heard a bell last night. 1 ring. He'd told himself it was a dream. I file that under things that are definitely fine and go collect my belongings from the patrol station, where my confiscated coins have mysteriously evolved into "you must be mistaken." Of course. Then home, where the purified house turns out to have been stripped by those same patrolmen down to the good chairs. Evil spirits, notoriously uninterested in furniture. My father's herbs? Moldy. The pantry? Rotting. Months of decay in 2 days, like the whole house aged in dog years. But under the stove, wrapped in linen, the clay pot is still there. 36 gold shields, each stamped with the king's profile, my inheritance. I take 12, rebury the rest, and sit down in my ransacked home to plan a life. The plan looks like this. 1. Don't die. 2. The priest mentioned a mysterious power he could teach. Get it. 3. About that 100 gold debt. See philosophy above. Compound interest is no match for a man prepared to run away with the bucket. Now, about that golden wall. It rewards practice, so what counts as practice? I spend an afternoon finding out, and the wall spends an afternoon roasting me. Warm-up, 5 sets of lightning whip kicks, or my best imitation thereof. Then the first 8 movements of the 24-step Tai Chi form, performed with monastic seriousness, a full hour, sweat pouring, spirit soaring. Nothing. Fine. I fetch a kitchen knife and chop an imaginary wooden steak for 30 minutes while contemplating the deep philosophy of forced delivery. Nothing. I write actual code on actual paper, my profession, my craft, my entire adult life, executed with more diligence than any employer ever extracted from me. Nothing. In rising desperation, I recite the one chapter of the Diamond Sutra I know by heart, and the wall's silence achieves a quality I can only describe as pitying. Half my previous existence. 0 experience points. Somewhere, a Buddha declines to transmigrate into this world, and honestly, fair. One thing left. Back on Earth after a stretch of nightmares, a white-haired old Taoist once taught me a meditation called the Golden Light Charm. Chant to gather your thoughts, then visualize. A silver moon before you, sinking into your brow. Your heart flaring into a small sun, light flooding your chest. The sun descending into your core, golden radiance pouring out through every pore. I practiced it for half a month back then. The nightmares stopped, and I shelved it with the rest of my abandoned hobbies. I sit cross-legged, form the hand seal, and run the cycle. The wall lights up green. Golden Light Charm, 3 out of 10,000, level 0. You will feel refreshed, your organs balanced, your sleep improved. Note, cultivation makes you hungry. Level 0. Every other skill starts at level 1. This thing starts below the starting line and needs 10,000 points just to reach the door, which in Golden Wall language means its ceiling is somewhere I can't even see. The one souvenir I smuggled out of my old world, and it turns out to be the deepest well in my inventory. Haha. I have lived a worthwhile life. Time to grind. Grinding needs fuel, so I go shopping, and the town immediately mugs me. 5 pounds of white flour, 10 of rice, and the miller beams at me over a bill of 8 silver coins. This in a currency where 1 gold shield is 100 silvers, and 100 silvers feed a family for weeks. Cultivation, the Golden Wall warned me, makes you hungry. Nobody warned me it makes you poor. I haven't even bought meat yet. The meat comes with a side of news. 10 pounds of pork belly, 26 silvers, and while the butcher wraps it, I nod at the shop across the street, sealed with patrol tape. He sighs. The cow family didn't open this morning, and when patrol broke the door in, they carried out 7 bodies with white spots all over them. It's getting more and more dangerous here, he says, weighing my pork like it's an ordinary Tuesday. A few days ago, the evil spirit did Stink Alley too. No survivors. 1 survivor, actually. He's buying pork belly. But I let it go and chew on the real numbers instead. This town used to average less than 1 paranormal event a year. That's 2 massacres in a week. Someone turned up the dial on this world, and it's still turning. I cook lunch with that thought for seasoning, and the lunch, out of nowhere, unlocks a cooking skill the moment the pork hits the pan. Because apparently, growing up in a civilization that scheduled its entire calendar around festival food counts as inherited talent. Rice balls at the Lantern Festival, dumplings at Qingming, mooncakes in mid-autumn. My ancestors ate their way through history, and the Golden Wall recognizes the bloodline. Fine, a man's got to eat between apocalypses, and now he's got a stat for it. So the schedule writes itself. Mornings, Golden Light Charm. Afternoons, the patrol shooting range, which requires a small diplomatic mission. I walk into the station, offer Cale a cigar, and watch him perform reluctance. Team rules, you understand. Very difficult. Then I slide a silver coin across the desk and light his cigar for him while the rules evaporate. We're so close, says the man who sentenced me to a Last Supper 2 weeks ago, vanishing into the smoke. Don't be so polite in the future. 200 rounds a day after that, pistol recoil hammering my arms into experience points, while Cale pockets his ammunition margin and privately marvels to his colleagues that the kid whose house they robbed still has money to burn. He'd love me to come every day, he tells them, sneering. Joke's on him, I do. Evenings, herbs. Old Garth, the town's most seasoned herb gatherer, has been sitting on his porch in quiet despair since my father died, because his entire market died too, and when the herbalist's useless son shows up at his fence offering father's old prices, cash on delivery, the old man's face blooms like a chrysanthemum in Fast Forward. You? Buy herbs? Me, buy herbs. All of them. His despair and my demand shake hands, and I cart the first load home to a lab table lit by 4 herbal oil lamps. Then I brew, and the brewing humbles me. Broom flower, blood-activating herb, dog bones simmering in the crucible, goat beans ground until my fingers stop feeling grit. Add, stir, watch, and pour out yet another batch of expensive failure. Half the night of that. But the wall pays for failures, too. Every focused attempt ticks the counter, and somewhere past midnight, the crucible finally yields a thick black ointment that smells exactly, indescribably right. I know it worked before any test, the way you know a chord resolved. I scrape every last smear off the dog bones, seal it, and hold the jar up like a trophy. Medicine for bruises, blood flow, and bones, brewed by a dead man's hands in a murdered man's lab. I name it Tiger Bone Ointment because if you can't have quality control, at least have branding. 4 days of this loop, shooting climbs to tier 3, tossed stones shattered midair at an 80% clip. Herbalism closes on its next tier. The charm keeps trimming my need for sleep. Every rep pays out, and that feeling is a slot machine that never loses. Other people need faith to keep working in the dark. I have numbers, which is when my creditor comes to collect. Reese materializes at my door with the timing of a man who can smell solvency. I heard you've been doing well these past few days, he opens, in the tone debt collectors save for their favorites. I respond with financial philosophy. I'm not worried about having too much debt, Father, the same way I'm not bothered by having too many lice. The priest's face suggests no one has ever compared his invoices to parasites before, and that he almost respects it. I hand over 8 gold shields, every coin currently on my person, displayed with theatrical pocket turning, plead poverty, and, since he's here, ask the real question. When evil comes for ordinary people, what can ordinary people actually do? You may pray to the Flame Lord, he says. Right, and if praying isn't my strong suit? He studies me for a while. Then he tells me about the Holy Church Army, warriors the church raises from devout youths, 10 years of formation. I'm already too old, but he's an exorcist priest banished to this armpit of the kingdom without the support troops he's owed, and I can see a thought assembling behind his eyes. If the church won't assign me a warrior, why not build one? His offer, stripped of incense, pay for your own training, answer his call unconditionally whenever evil threatens the parish, take 20% of the loot, and first, prove you can afford it. 100 gold shields, 3 months, my debt due in full. Consider these gold shields interest, he says, patting the pocket where my 8 coins just vanished. The world of mysterious powers has opened its doors to you. It all depends on whether you can seize it. I sit there a long time after he leaves, chest heaving. I just bet 108 gold shields on the character of a priest who charges for exorcisms. And you know what? All in. If I win, I walk through that door. If I lose, my shooting is no joke, and neither is my new credit philosophy. Something's changing in me, and I notice it the way you notice a haircut in a shop window. 2 lifetimes of timidity. The salaryman who never argued with a client. The transmigrator who hoarded every coin, quietly dissolving, replaced by a man who bets his savings on 1 meeting and sleeps fine. Maybe it's the golden wall, whispering that every risk can be trained away. Maybe it's just what happens when your first week in a world includes a death sentence. Everything after feels like house money. Making 100 gold in 3 months means customers, and mine are on a hillside east of town. 2 livestock ranches and a slaughterhouse that feed a quarter of the big city's meat demand. My late father was, in practice, a veterinarian. His star client, a stud stallion named Carlovan, whose services are booked by actual viscounts, and whose stamina is a matter of commercial importance. Rancher Barry gives me the bear hug, the condolences, the "you look strong" speech, and then the polite brush-off, excusing himself to check on the stallion the moment I mentioned supplying medicine. His herbalist died, and his herbalist son is, as far as he knows, a sweet boy with no talent, and 20 years of friendship with my father buys me sympathy, not contracts. So I grab his arm on the way out. His face goes cold enough to frost glass and put the wooden crate on his table anyway. Look at the potions first. If they're no good, I'll leave and never linger. He shakes the first vial up to the light and his eyebrows do the thing. Judging from color alone, these aren't just up to Dad's standard. Did you really make this? Or is it your father's leftover stock? If I didn't make it, how long could leftovers last? Fair point, concedes the man, and demands a live trial. An hour and a half later, Carlovan the stallion has spent most of that time enthusiastically demonstrating my product on a mare, the ranch staff timing him with something like national pride. A bloated foal is unbloated, a sheepdog's dignity is restored, and Barry is nodding like a man watching money print itself. Same prices as Dad, weekly deliveries, and an order on the spot. The second ranch, Viridian's, folds even faster, and its owner teaches me something on the way out. When I later watch Viridian volunteer a monthly donation to the church after Reese kills his monster, first Sunday of every month, unprompted, generous, I finally get why he's richer than Barry despite starting later. In an age when evil walks, staying liquid with the people who can kill monsters isn't piety, it's insurance. That's what Vision looks like from below. On my way out, Viridian's housekeeper reports turkeys missing from the coop again, and the rancher curses some chicken thief. I ride on and forget about it for exactly 1 afternoon. The part I spend in the foothills, hunting and gathering. A fat gray dove sings cheerfully overhead, announcing its location to the entire forest, and I draw and fire in one motion. You had to open your mouth, I inform the dinner ingredient as I bag it. Sang so loudly. Are you dead now? Hunting tip from a former city boy. In this world, being loud is a food group. The gathering goes even better. Wild black sage, growing free in the grass with a faint halo shimmering on its too deep black. Mutated herb, 10 times the potency, poison in the wrong hands, money in mine. I dig each stalk like it's made of glass, fill half a pack with broom and caltrop and ground clover besides. bag 2 pheasants and a rabbit, and pack up well before dark, because the new rule of this countryside is simple. After midnight, the wilderness has a menu, and campers are on it. Then, passing the chicken run at dusk, I see the thief. It's a goat, a black, long-haired goat, standing on its hind legs like a kangaroo, herding 3 sleepwalking chickens into a shed with its bent forelegs. It goes in. 10 minutes later, it comes out on all fours, chewing, with chicken feet sticking out of its mouth like toothpicks. I make eye contact with a goat that is eating a chicken, and the goat looks back with something human moving behind its rectangular pupils. Then it picks up a mouthful of grass, chews with theatrical innocence, and tilts its head at me. I ride past like a man who has seen nothing. Some conversations you don't have alone at sunset. The priest doesn't even blink at my report. Possessed, obviously. Want to watch the extermination? Do I. He changes into silver half-armor, hoists a round iron shield, and a flail with a spiked ball the size of a cooking pot, and suddenly, my skinny debt collector looks like a mural about the wrath of God. At the ranch, the housekeeper leads out the goat. The goat is still chewing grass. Reese tells everyone to step way back, walks up, and the goat drops the act. Black liquid gushes from all 7 of its openings. Its body swells, hooves split into clawed hands, and the thing catches the priest's flail mid-swing with a smirk on its long face. It throws him. It slams him into the dirt. The 2 of them blur into after images, and I stand there with my revolver, realizing my eyes can't even track this fight, let alone join it. Then Reese stops warming up. Shield to the nose, most creatures have fragile noses, and goat monsters, it turns out, are creatures. Flames ignite along his shield. White frost spreads under the monster's burning hooves, and they tear up the yard for 5 minutes until the monster decides it has urgent business elsewhere, clears a 2-story fence in one leap, and takes a flying, white-hot iron ball directly in the spine. It drops out of the sky like a shot pheasant, the flail buried in its back. For the record, I did shoot the thing during the fight. 6 bullets, beautiful grouping, dead center of the chest. They bounced. At 30 meters, my proudest skill couldn't break the skin of a real monster, and I swallow that lesson whole. The gap between me and the extraordinary isn't a gap, it's a canyon. And then, because this world never misses an invoice, I watch the grateful rancher slip me a thank you pouch of silver, and watch Reese confiscate 80% of it on the ride home. You provided information. I did the killing. Don't you feel feverish taking all this money? The man shook down his own bodyguard in training. This distribution, he informs me, is a matter of principle. I keep 10 silver coins and a grudge the size of a barn. But that evening, in a lamplit room under the church, he teaches me to dissect the monster. The toolbox alone is an education. Knives, saws, chisels, pliers, all in Valerian steel, indistinguishable from a carpenter's kit until you learn what it carpenters, and the first lesson lands hard. The muscle that bounced my bullets parts under the silver blade like tough cowhide. Materials are a hierarchy, and I've been living on its bottom floor. Heart, teeth, hide, which parts sell to whom. My arms ache for a day after, and while I'm elbow deep in goat, I do the math. Training, plus loot shares, plus lessons in exactly the knowledge no book in this town contains. Fine, father, 20%. For now, because I've also noticed what this world is missing, and it's a market older than monsters. There are no doctors here, none. The church's holy water cures everything, so no profession of healing ever grew. But holy water costs what a workman earns in a month, so ordinary people just endure their illnesses until they're dying, then pawn their furniture for a bottle. That gap in the market has my name on it in letters of gold. So I pitch the priest a partnership. Cheap, real medicine for the common folk, 10% of sales to him. He scoffs. Why would the church fund its own competition? So I walk him through the arithmetic like a street vendor teaching a bishop to count. Holy water moves a few bottles a month at 50 silver. My tonics move hundreds at 5, to people who currently buy nothing and just suffer. New market. Free money. His cut. 10% is too little, says the servant of the Flame Lord. I want 20. And how do I verify your sales figures? I'd budgeted for exactly this haggling, so I fold gracefully, and he immediately improves the scheme. The church can't be seen selling snake oil, so his younger brother Elian will come from his hometown to run distribution. Family logistics. Plausible deniability. A priest, a fake herbalist, and an off-books pharmaceutical operation. I'd feel guiltier about it if the products didn't actually work. You need to hurry though, Reese adds at the door, pleasant as a tax notice. 10 days of your 3 months are already gone. Meanwhile, something is wrong with my mornings. Every few days I wake up feeling like a wrung-out dish rag. No reason. I sleep, I eat like a horse, the charm keeps my engine humming, and then some mornings my limbs are cotton and my face in the wash basin looks like a hangover with no party attached. I blame training, I blame the weather, I keep grinding, and the grinding pays. One night, the golden light charm crosses its first threshold, and the reward isn't a stat bump, it's knowledge, blooming in my head like it was always there. 2 talisman recipes, a heart-cleansing talisman that calms the mind, a golden light talisman that drives off evil, 2 new hand seals, the great sun and the moonlight, and instructions. At dawn, face the rising rising sun and refine yourself in its light. At dusk, bathe in the moon. A real cultivation method, straight out of the novels I used to read on my phone in another universe. So before sunrise, I hike to a hilltop east of town with a bag of boiled eggs, sit facing the horizon, and run the visualization as the first light hits me. Warmth floods in. A crystal ball appears in my mind's eye, a drop of gold condensing inside it, and then something screams. Not outside, inside. A shriek tears through my skull, rotten and furious, and my body detonates. Veins bulge and writhe under my skin like centipedes. Capillaries burst. Black spots bloom across my arms, my chest, my face, and the pain is a live wire pulled through every nerve. 10 minutes of gripping the grass and breathing through my teeth before it ebbs, leaving me spotted like a plague victim and shaking. There is something inside me, and I know, the way you know a thing your bones figured out before your brain did, what it is. The evil spirit that slaughtered my street, the one the town is still hunting. It never left. The baptisms didn't burn it out. It's been living in me this whole time, and those drained mornings, those butchered families across town on the exact nights I woke up gutted, I stagger back to town with my sleeves pulled low over the spots, planning to bunker at home and make one stop for supplies that turns into an interrogation. The butcher shop is locked, so I buy 20 pounds of eggs next door, and my voice comes out so hoarse the vendor doesn't blink at the questions. When exactly did the butcher's family die? He scratches his bald head, counting. The 24th, definitely, because the 25th was Sunday. The 24th. The morning I woke up, drained with cotton for limbs. Confirmed. I am the murder weapon. Every family this thing kills, it kills wearing my body like a coat. And if the priest ever connects those dots, no amount of clear-headed answers saves me from the fire. The vendor hands me my change and my eggs and wishes me a nice day, entirely unaware he's just helped a man convict himself of 8 murders. So, panic? Tempting. Instead, I look at the facts. The sunrise meditation heard it. That scream was the sound of something being burned, which means I'm not the host of this parasite. I'm the oven. And it's time to preheat. I go home, cook a mountain of rice and stew, and declare war. Visualization cycle. Agonizing scream. Black spots flare and fade. Eat. Repeat. 21 cycles by sundown. A whole pot of stew through the furnace of my body. And each round the thing's shrieks get thinner. The pain gets duller. I'm winning. I'm actually winning. Then night falls and the evil spirit stops playing defense. The moonlight seal is mid-cycle when cold explodes through my skull and something shoves my consciousness aside like a bouncer. My body stands up, not on my orders. It walks to the mirror, and in the glass my eyes are golden vertical slits, black whiskers jutting from my face, and my own right hand rises, 2 fingers bent, moving toward my eyes. It wants me to gouge out my own eyes, with my own hand, while I watch from the passenger seat. Terror does something clarifying to the mind. I focus everything I have, every scrap of will, every hour of visualization, and the membrane smothering my consciousness tears. I get back half, the left half. So there I am at midnight, alone in my house, my right hand clawing toward my face while my left hand strangles its wrist. One man playing tug-of-war against himself in front of a mirror, and the stakes are my eyeballs. The winner takes the body. The loser is done. I hold. I don't know how long. Time stops meaning anything when you're arm wrestling a demon for your own face. But somewhere out in the dark, a rooster crows, and the pressure vanishes like a tide going out. I collapse, gasping, every muscle spasming. I have never once in 2 lives appreciated the simple luxury of breathing on purpose. The face in the wash water is blue-black and spotted. The message is clear. Tonight, it almost took the wheel. If it comes back tomorrow night at full strength, I lose. So tomorrow, it doesn't get to be at full strength. I eat, I visualize. I eat, I visualize. A full day of scorching the parasite awake to dusk. No mercy, no breaks except to shovel rice. Evil spirit, I tell my reflection, hands forming the seal again. I'm going to torture you to death. By noon of the second day, the wailing in my head is a whimper. By late afternoon, the black spots are gone and my skin has taken on a faint jade sheen. And on the last cycle, thick black smoke pours off my body, and I watch, in some space behind my eyes, an octopus writhing in golden flame, burning, shrinking, until what's left isn't a monster at all. It's an hourglass, brass base, silver stars, filled with fine golden sand, spinning quietly in the dark of my consciousness next to the crystal ball. The evil spirit didn't just die. It got rendered down, like fat off a carcass, into a tool. I test it. The hourglass tells me the exact time, down to the minute, whenever I think to ask. And when I flip a silver coin and push my will into the sand, the coin stops, in the air. 3-4 seconds of a silver disc hanging over my palm like the universe hit pause. And then the sand runs out and gravity remembers its job. Time. The thing in my chest eats moments and serves them back to me. I name it the time hourglass, admire my naming skills for exactly 0 seconds, and then catch my reflection grinning and pause. The face is better. Cleaner lines, brighter eyes. 2 days of burning a demon alive apparently doubles as a spa treatment. Strength is temporary, I tell my reflection, but handsome lasts a lifetime. There's a sober footnote under all the swagger, though. The hourglass refills 2 ways, slowly, on its own, or by drinking the life essence and misery of living things. That second option is exactly how the old tenant paid its rent, 1 massacred family at a time. I file that recipe under never and mean it. With the monster in my chest demoted to a kitchen timer, I go back to my actual problem. 100 gold shields and a merchant caravan due in town. The Giselle, nomad traders who show up the first week of each month and know everything worth knowing. The Goat Inn is packed the night I go to meet them. Quarry workers drinking off their shifts. The owner, old Jason, bellowing orders. The whole room smelling like beer and roast lamb, and I don't even reach the back door before a stranger's arm blocks my path. White hair tied back loose, a scar plowed from forehead to cheekbone, tawny eyes that catch the lamplight like a cat's, a wolf's head medallion, and 2 swords on his back. My name is Kalen, he says, Kalen the White Wolf. Somewhere, a lawyer in another universe just felt a disturbance. He's sharing a table with a kid of 11 or 12, similarly dressed, similarly armed, currently inhaling stew like it owes him money. The stranger buys me the good rye beer, tips the waiter a whole extra copper, big spender, and makes his bizarre opening bid. He could smell the black sage in my sealed, double-boxed medicine kit from across a crowded tavern, and he wants to buy it in bulk. Black sage. The herb only the mysterious world has any use for. Either this man is a bloodhound in a leather jacket, or he's something the town has no word for. I probe. He parries. The kid mutters that the world's growing darker and the Flame Lord may not have time to light anyone's way. Heretic talk, in a kingdom where that word comes with consequences. And I'm halfway to writing them both off as trouble when Kalen names the exact potion the sage brews and quotes me the Giselle's extortionate prices, complete with the pigs for slaughter line I'll be recycling within the hour. This man is deep inside the world I'm trying to buy a ticket to. I promise him 2 stalks of sage, order 2 extra roast lamb legs for the table, the kid's eyes light up like festival lanterns, and head for the back door. Behind me, softly, a conversation happens that I won't learn about for weeks. The kid asks his teacher why he stopped a stranger over herbs they can't currently afford to use. And Kalen, staring at the door I just walked through, says he felt something on me he couldn't explain. Sunshine. Standing in winter sun. Everything was beautiful. The boy tastes his stew and reports feeling nothing because some frequencies only broken people receive. The main quest is sitting in the back courtyard surrounded by 20 armed nomads. An old man called Kovac, silver-haired, sharp-eyed, with a feverish little girl coughing in his arms. They laugh me out of the gate when I say I'm the herbalist. The Giselle are herbalists, kid. Everyone knows that. So I skip the resume and hand the old man a vial. For the girl, 1 dose kills the fever. 3 doses cure the cough. He sniffs it, licks a drop, doses the child. 5 minutes, sweat. 10 minutes, soaked. 15. She's asleep in his arms, breathing easy, and every merchant in that room is suddenly looking at me like I'm a rare coin somebody dropped in the mud. Kovac hugs me, drags out a chair, and starts talking numbers. The next night, I come back for the real negotiation, and it opens with a tell. Kovac greets me with a blush he can't quite hide, having personally, verified Dad's famous pink potion overnight. A satisfied customer is a weakened negotiator. I settle into my chair like a cat into sunlight. He lowballs me anyway, because he's a professional. My fever tonic, he argues, ties up his capital, burdens his wagons, might get eaten by monsters en route, and besides, he can reverse engineer my ingredients. They can't cost more than 5 silver a set. So I do the math out loud for the whole room. The church sells holy water for these same fevers at 50 silver a bottle, 2 doses to cure, 20 silver a treatment. My tonic does it in 1 dose for 5. You have at least 10 silver of margin per vial, and I'm the one eating the herb costs. The old man's face goes through 5 stages of a merchant realizing the country boy brought an abacus. An expert indeed, I concede when he correctly names my base ingredients. Now tell me, what's the best success rate you've ever seen a herbalist manage? Can it reach 100%? Silence. Because the honest answer is 50, 60 on a blessed day, and we both know what my answer implies. We land on 4.5 silver per vial, price of pink potion untouched, and both walk away feeling like winners, which is how you know it was a fair deal. Then I ask for black sage and blue tulip petals, and the temperature changes. Those are materials for boiling blood potion, extraordinary grade, the stuff the church feeds its knights, and no small-town boy should know the recipe, let alone shop for it. When he quotes me prices designed for slaughtering pigs, I lean in and repeat what Kalen told me at the front of the house, word for word. You treat customers like pigs for slaughter. The old man's face does a complicated thing. He knows exactly which white-haired customer I've been comparing notes with. And then he makes me the nomad version of a dare. Materials at a fair price, 10 portions, and if I deliver 1 real boiling blood potion within 2 days, the price stands forever, plus a standing purchase order. If I fail, I'm blacklisted from every Giselle caravan on the continent. A wise choice, I say, snapping my fingers like a man who has definitely brewed transcendent potions before and is not at all running on pure cheat engine confidence. You'll be glad you made this decision. I also buy a pocket watch, 1 gold shield, brass cover, clover engraving. No bargaining allowed per the old man's sudden announcement, now that the demon in my chest has made me a punctuality enthusiast. The joke being, of course, that the demon keeps better time than the watch. I check them against each other for a week. The watch loses. Back in the front room, I deliver Kalen his sage and get paid in something better than gold, an orientation lecture. The white-haired man is a witcher, a monster hunter built by mutation, one of the 5 ways humans go extraordinary in this world. Knights who sublimate their life force, witchers who survive the mutagens, exorcist priests, bloodline sorcerers, and the 5th path, the cheap seat, the one with the horrifying warranty. Spirit masters, people who deliberately swallow an evil spirit and spend every day of the rest of their lives arm wrestling it for control. A quarter of all paranormal incidents, Kalen says, are spirit masters losing that match. I sit there nodding politely while my blood quietly runs cold, because that's me. That's exactly me, minus the paperwork. Some poor souls drink a potion to get their demon. Mine came free with the apartment. And you, Kalen adds, studying me with those cat eyes, are already a mystic. Your spirit reads like sunshine, warm winter sunlight. He assumes I'm some wild, awakened sorcerer. I assume the less he assumes correctly, the longer I live, and let the misunderstanding bloom. Between deals, my kitchen quietly becomes a legend, and I discover the local loophole of a lifetime. Nobody in this world eats organ meat. The butchers practically pay you to haul intestines away, so I take a new butcher's large intestines off his hands for coppers, soak them in ginger water, and produce a stir-fry so good I nearly bite my tongue. One mouthful of fatty richness, 0 grease, infinite smugness. Cooking jumps a full tier over a single dinner, and its new skill text informs me I now grasp the true meaning of ingredients. The true meaning of these ingredients is that an entire civilization's squeamishness is subsidizing my food budget. If I ever go broke, I'll open a tavern and rule this town through nostalgia they haven't felt yet. That evening, I climb the inn stairs to deliver Kalen's sage and walk into a problem. The witchers, it turns out, are in town hunting the evil spirit, my former tenant, and tomorrow they plan to interrogate the massacre's only survivor, who, per Kalen's cheerful reasoning, is obviously the spirit's hiding place, holy baptism or not. His exact words, an evil spirit that powerful leaves no survivors, and tomorrow his enhanced senses will find whatever the priest missed. I cough. Actually, that survivor is me. The room goes so quiet I can hear Elias chewing. Then Kalen does his test anyway. Silver stardust on his fingertip, a whispered sign, light washing over me, and his frown deepens with every second, because there's nothing to find. No malice, no stench of evil, just, again, sunshine. I feed him a half-truth. Something squeezed into my body that night. The priest's ritual burned it, and now there's an hourglass where a monster used to be, which makes me, by his own classification, a spirit master. A spirit master with none of the corruption every other spirit master marinates in, a thing that should be impossible, and which I decline to explain, on the grounds that I can't. Too much talk leads to mistakes is a philosophy that has kept better men than me alive. That night, I come home to find my front door ajar and something inside eating my chicken. I know it's eating my chicken because I can hear it smacking its lips. My level 3 cooking skill has officially started attracting burglars from a different food chain. I ease the door open, revolver up, get out half of a very professional "don't move," and an iron pot flies at my head. My own pot, thrown by the thing in my kitchen, which steps out into the moonlight and resolves into 2 meters of muscle, black fur, and a wolf's head on a man's shoulders. A werewolf, in my house, eating my dinner. Everything after that happens very fast, and none of it is dignified. I dodge my own cookware while swearing in 2 languages. The wolf thing bursts out after its projectile, and we square off in the moonlit street, me with 6 bullets, it with a lifetime of being bulletproof. 6 shots. It dodges 4 with its head, because bullets bounce off everything else, and werewolves apparently know it. It charges. I burn the hourglass dry to freeze it for one precious blink, duck the lunge as it slams into the wall behind me, and put my last bullet into its temple at point-blank range. And the thing howls, gets up, and runs off into the night with a bullet parked against its skull like a bad memory. Not even skull deep, at arm's length. I stand in my wrecked kitchen doing inventory. Door broken, pot dented, chicken gone, monster annoyed, but alive. The witchers arrive at a sprint 2 minutes later, drawn by the noise, and Kalen delivers the good news with professional calm. Werewolves hold grudges. It will heal. It will come back. Take necessary precautions. Thanks. Great. I was just thinking my life needed a recurring villain with my home address. The inn sends me off in style, incidentally. 2 drunks are brawling at the entrance while a bookmaker works the crowd. Brock, break his nose, because this town's nightlife is 2 men punching each other and a betting pool, and honestly, after the month I've had, I find the normalcy adorable. Then I go home and find out what a transcendent potion actually costs. Blue tulip petals in boiling water, basil juice, black sage ground, and its smoke piped into the boil, half an hour of surgical concentration per attempt, and the first attempt dies. So does the second. And the 3rd through 7th, each failure a little cleaner than the last, me sitting in the lamplight between batches, replaying every step like game film. On the 8th, I nearly have it and ruin it through sheer overconfidence, leaving the alcohol lamp on 3 seconds too long, which is the alchemical equivalent of face-planting at the finish line. I take a break, run 2 cycles of the charm to reboot my brain, crack my neck, and say the sacred words of my people. Let's get to work. Attempt 9 succeeds. By dawn, 12 more attempts, 3 total successes, 9 vials cooling on the rack, and a proficiency counter that climbed all night like a shareholder's dream. 2 days after the dare, I'm back at the inn with 9 vials of boiling blood potion. Kovacs, who is already packed to leave, checks each vial like a jeweler. Shake, color, clarity, sniff, and sniff again. 8 more times until I ask if he's planning to date them. Then he goes quiet and asks, very carefully, whether I really made these. First try, I tell him. Last night. Never brewed one before in my life. The old man's face does arithmetic in real time. A herbalist's lifetime success rate on familiar potions tops out around 50%. A first-timer on a new recipe should produce vinegar and regret. He looks at me the way you look at a walking mint. Then he asks, with the sudden tenderness of a man who has found a goose and identified its eggs, whether I could possibly be persuaded to stay a few more days, and unloads his entire remaining stock of materials on credit terms so generous, I get suspicious. A genius apothecary, he explains, deserves this trust. What he means is, the Giselle caravans span the continent. They invest in people the way farmers invest in seed grain, and I have just been planted. The grand trade happens between the trust falls, and it's my favorite kind of theater. His people count my 600 vials twice. I weigh his herbs on my own balance scale, brought for the purpose, while he watches with the wounded dignity of an honest man being audited. I do the settlement math out loud with a pencil stub, potions out, materials in, 27 gold my way, and hand him the paper to check. He checks it, to the copper. We beam at each other across the table like 2 crocodiles agreeing the river is big enough, and I whistle all the way home with a bag of money and materials heavy enough to bruise. The all is out of the bag, as they say, and its point is very visible. Slightly better than others gets you envied. Massively better gets you invested in. By the end of the week, the old man has fronted me 40 more portions of materials, waited 2 extra days on his route, and watched me walk back in with 50 vials brewed at a 60% clip. He offers me a standing contract on the spot. The Giselle provide materials and sales. I provide miracles. The 50-vial delivery is its own comedy. Kovacs inspects each one. Half an hour of shaking, sniffing, holding vials to the lamp with hands that have developed a faint tremble, while I heckle him about wasting a businessman's day. And when he finally looks up, his eyes have the fixed intensity of a man watching his retirement walk around on 2 legs. Then he skips the settlement entirely and proposes the real contract. The caravan fronts all materials plus a 20% deposit, monthly quotas, costs settled at the end. Terms so soft I brace for the hook that never comes. A genius apothecary, he repeats, deserves this trust. Behind the courtesy, I can hear the Giselle network quietly assigning me an account number. I walk out of that inn with 250 gold shields in my bag, having arrived in this world's economy 3 weeks ago with 36 and a death sentence. Herbalists, I reflect, make way too much money. Good thing I'm one of them. I celebrate the only way that makes sense. I cook a feast and invite the witchers, partly as thanks and partly as consulting fees, because I have a werewolf problem, and they're the yellow pages for werewolf problems. Over crystal pork knuckle and braised chicken, Kalen lays out my options like a man reading a menu. Mithril weapons, a gold shield per gram, so no. Flex, workable. A large caliber custom pistol, someday. Or option 4, a body stronger than the werewolves, so you won't have to fear them. He says it like a joke. I write it down like a syllabus. And then, the next morning, I make the church an offer it has already priced. 100 gold shields on Father Reese's table, 1 month after he gave me 3. The priest weighs the bag and does an admirable job of hiding that his eyebrows want to leave his face. When he asks how, I say 2 words, boiling blood potion, and watch a second calculation bloom behind his eyes. Because that potion is what the church's own knights drink after their first elevation, and his new pet project apparently mass produces it. Father, may I receive your training? I can. As a candidate soldier, unofficial, self-funded, obedient unto recruitment, all the fine print I expected. I give the solemn yes. And Reese, may his account books forgive him, actually smiles. Now, your first lesson. The first lesson is running. Specifically, a sandbag vest, sandbag leg wraps, sandbag wristbands, a drizzle slick training yard, and a quota of 100 laps, enforced by a priest with a leather whip and the bedside manner of a drill sergeant. My vision goes black around lap 50. My throat becomes a kettle boiling dry. The whip cracks every time I slow, and the voice behind it keeps up a stream of motivational theology. The world's spirituality is waking up. The monsters are multiplying. Do you want to greet them with closed eyes and prayers? Here's what Reese doesn't know. 100 laps is the minimum bar for eventual knighthood, a bar ordinary men need 3 to 5 years of training to clear. He shouted it at me as a horizon, not a target. And here's what I figure out at lap 70-something, running on pure spite. Visualization needs the mind, not the posture. So I do something no sane cultivator does. I run the golden light charm with my eyes open, mid-stride, the visualized moon shattering and reforming with every footfall until I learn to carry it with me. Warmth floods my legs. My dead muscles come back online like someone paid the electric bill. Reese stops counting at 92 laps. collapse when I finally stagger to a halt in front of him. Not because I collapsed, but because I'm so hungry my stomach is filing complaints with my spine. I'm hungry, I announced to my new instructor, with all the ceremony the moment deserves. For the record, he stopped using the whip around lap 80, not out of mercy, because it had stopped producing data. The priest just stood there, watching a first aid trainee run on willpower past the point where bodies file for bankruptcy, quietly revising his production schedule for me from extraordinary in a year down to maybe 6 months, and deciding it would be a crime against the Flame Lord not to squeeze this particular talent dry. I know all this because he tells me later, fondly, the way other people share baby photos. The priest laughs and feeds me, and keeps feeding me, course after course, watching the plates stack up with the delight of a farmer watching a prize hog. Because in the knight's trade, appetite is horsepower. Then a nun named Serafina glides in with a medicinal soup, graceful as a swan, and glides out, and I watch her go with an attention that has nothing to do with herbalism. Reese catches me looking and snorts. Once you're extraordinary, you'll find you have many more choices. Noted, father, filed under incentives. The medicine itself gets the herbalist treatment before I trust it. One sniff of the ointment, and I've inventoried its contents. Broom flower, blood-activating grass, a cheaper cousin of my own tiger bone recipe, and the tonic reads as standard blood and chi restoratives. Solid, honest formulas. Reese hands me the prescriptions that evening and tells me to brew my own from now on. Save the money. And then, in a tone he tries to make casual, adds that if I run short on food costs, I should ask him. No interest this time. From Reese, that sentence is roughly a marriage proposal. I train harder the next morning, which was, of course, the intended effect, but knowing the trick doesn't stop it working. Afternoon, swordsmanship. Basic cuts, thrust, slash, point, parry, drilled until the golden wall coughs up a brand new skill and starts counting. By sunset, 66 points. That night, I keep practicing alone in my backyard until frost forms on the ground, because every insight lands like a dopamine hit, and I have the self-restraint of a lab rat on a lever. The days blur into a rhythm with 2 fixed stars. Morning, the training yard, where the nun Serafina relays the priest's instructions in a voice like clear water, smiles her dimpled smile, and walks away while I stand there reciting mental multiplication tables. Just hearing a pretty voice does this to you, I scold myself, patting my own chest. Pathetic, hot-blooded youth. The body came with its own hormones, and I am merely the tenant. And evening, the streets, where the town keeps delivering its counter-argument to peace. One dusk, I pass a crowd around donkey carts outside the patrol station, quarry workers, faces gray, hauling in their own dead. Men gutted in the wilderness, organs gone. Not a werewolf. Werewolves don't waste food, and these bodies were opened like packages and left. Reese rides out to investigate, comes back grim, and starts writing letters to the city with words in them like tamer and evil god priesthood. Born in this dark age without power, I write in my own internal ledger, you're a menu item. Train harder. 4 days later, I run 108 laps in an hour, in 15 kilos of sand. The minimum physical standard for knighthood, the 3 to 5 year bar, cleared in under a week. Reese's face does the thing where pride and disbelief fight for the same muscles. Then we spar, and things get genuinely embarrassing. For him. The learning curve isn't a curve, it's a wall going up. Afternoons we spar, the priest defending, me attacking, insights detonating in my head mid-exchange, each one an audible, so that's how it's done, that makes him twitch. Evenings after he leaves, I keep drilling alone in my frozen backyard, working the loop I've perfected. Swing until empty, eat, meditate 2 cycles, swing again, repeat until the night wind ices the ground. The wall pays out every rep, and the numbers make sleep feel like theft. Day 1 of sparring, I disarm the priest. He assumed it was luck. Day 1, an hour later, I do it again, sliding my blade down his and taking his hand off the hilt, and this time he decides to stop coaching and start fighting, because, in his words, if this squire advances to the extraordinary level, he'll be difficult to control, so it's time to thoroughly thwart my arrogance. He unleashes his real swordsmanship. Half an hour later, I fake a rising slash, convert it mid-motion, and knock his sword spinning across the yard. The sunset paints us both orange, while the priest stares at his empty hands, and I can see the 2 halves of him wrestling. The swordsman who just got disarmed by a 6-day novice, and the parish priest doing the math on what a genius Holy Church Army warrior is worth to a forgotten border church. The math wins. The math always wins with Reese. Tomorrow, he says, I teach you the cross sword. Study it carefully. When Reese returns from the quarry investigation, all he'll say is that the trail vanished into the mountains, and that things are happening faster than we expected. I don't press. I'm weak enough that knowing more would just be carrying someone else's nightmares. Instead, I audit my own monster. Quiet evenings with the time hourglass. The stop time field reaches 20 centimeters off my skin and not a hair further. Cost scales with the kinetic energy of whatever I'm freezing. A falling coin is pocket change, a charging werewolf drained the whole tank, and every extra 100th of a second costs multiples of the one before. A pricing scheme so predatory it could only have been designed by a demon. Refill options, wait weeks, or harvest the essence and misery of the living, which is a no. It's not a battlefield pause button, it's a scalpel for one precise, impossible moment, purchased at loan shark rates. Good, scalpels win fights too. Which is convenient because my recurring villain keeps his appointment. I'm carrying my sword to the backyard for night drills when I hear two soft thumps outside the door, something heavy landing in my yard, followed by a low growl with a familiar timbre. The werewolf is back, healed up, and crouched beside my door with one claw raised, planning the classic ambush. Wait for the human to walk out, remove the human's head. Unfortunately for it, I've spent the intervening days getting a sharpened, star-patterned steel sword from the priest, several tiers of swordsmanship, and a full tank of sand, so I simply don't walk out. I stand inside, in the light, and wait. Werewolves, as it turns out, are not patient creatures. Mine loses its nerve, smashes my brand new door off its hinges, my poor door, replaced not 2 weeks ago, and lunges into the light with its arm shielding its eyes. The fight lasts about a minute. Its neck meets my blade, the blade meets bone, the bone objects. It swipes, I feint left, slip right, and drive the sword at its open mouth. It's fast enough to turn a killing thrust into a split cheek. Then it gathers itself for the big charge, and I meet it halfway, burn the hourglass, and in that one bought instant, feed my entire blade into its mouth and turn the hilt like a key. The werewolf that survived my bullet does not survive my geometry. I drag the body to the corner of the yard, sit down to review the fight like game film, and then, because the evening is young and proficiency waits for no man, go back to sword practice with the corpse for an audience. Sharing a room with a dead monster, I note, no longer registers. This world is renovating me faster than I'm renovating it. In the morning, I haul the carcass to the church, and Reese, God's own accountant, brightens instantly. The teeth will sell. That covers your food bill. You eat more than I budgeted. My mentor, everyone. I'd be offended if the food weren't genuinely excellent. 2 weeks into training, the scoreboard reads Basic Swordsmanship Tier 3, Cross Sword Tier 2, and a priest who can no longer give me a real match. Reese has stopped sparring and started scheduling, which leaves me one option for quality opposition, and he drinks at the Goat Inn. Except the night I go looking for Kalen, the innkeeper tells me the Witchers left town on a job, and that same night, something goes wrong with the moon. I sit down for my usual dusk meditation and can't. Restlessness crawls under my skin like ants. The calm won't come, the moon won't form. The whole practice slides off my mind like water off wax. I give up, walk to the window, and look up at a full moon the color of arterial blood. The priest had warned me, offhand, tonight is the most spiritually active night. Don't train, sleep early. I go to bed. I dream of falling into an abyss where a mountain of flesh waits, tentacled, its suckers replaced with eyes and little mouths, whispering in 100 voices. I wake soaked in sweat, stumble to the window, and the sky is full of corpses. Gray fog pressing down from above, and inside it, drifting, twisted bodies, human, bird, fish, stitched into shapes nothing sane ever drew. Whispers slither into my ears. My heart slams against my ribs like it's trying to leave without me. I stagger back into the shadows of the room, and it all vanishes. Step into the moonlight, hellscape. Step back, quiet night. I test it 3 times, methodical even while terrified, because data is data. The moonlight itself is contaminated. On red moon nights, the crazed things living behind the sky lean close to the glass, and anyone with enough spiritual sensitivity gets to see them looking back. Here's what I don't see that night, on a hill outside town. An abandoned mine, silver chains bolted to the rock, and a white werewolf thrashing against them until its strength gives out. When dawn comes, the werewolf shrinks into a scarred, white-haired man, and a boy drapes clothes over him. Kalen. My monster hunting consultant, my sunshine-sensing friend, chained up by his own hand every full moon, because the famous white wolf is a werewolf himself, and lately, the beast has been winning. He tells Elias to leave him before it's too late. The kid refuses. Neither of them mentions any of this to me. Everyone in this town has a monster in them. Mine's just better trained. And the man guarding all of us spends that same red moon night on his knees. Alone in the sanctuary under his church, Reese prays while the walls go transparent and the gray fog grinds against the silver runes, burning off in wisps of blue smoke where the light touches it. When the moon finally sets, he checks the basin of concentrated holy water, the parish's entire savings of faith, and finds it visibly shallower, the runes drinking deeper each month just to hold the line. The erosion is getting worse, he tells the empty hall, in the voice of a man updating a ledger that only ever runs one direction. One day the spirit realm will touch this world directly. Almighty Lord, have mercy on your people. Then he gets up, puts his account books away, and goes back to being the cheerful extortionist we all rely on, because somebody has to carry the arithmetic and smile. When I describe my window hell to Reese, his face goes through several stages of grief before settling on envy. Ordinary mortals can't perceive any of that. The odd city artist dreams fragments of it, he says, but seeing it awake means a spiritual sensitivity most third-tier masters would trade teeth for. Either I'm extraordinarily gifted or extraordinarily corrupted, and he charitably picks gifted. New standing order. On full moon nights, I sleep at the church, inside warded walls, where the sky can't make eye contact. Also new, he submitted my application to make me an official Holy Church Army warrior, with salary and supplies. I'm getting adopted by the organization, one form at a time, and the organization, I note, files its paperwork faster the more useful you look. The Witchers, meanwhile, come back to town, and I hire the pair of them as sparring partners, 1 gold shield an hour, which Elias accepts on his teacher's behalf so fast the coin practically vanishes. 13 years old, and the boy blocks my full-strength cuts. 6 years of training, 1 green grass trial short of being a real Witcher. A trial that is just a potion that mutates you or kills you, 30 to 40% odds. And they can't even attempt it because no alchemist outside the Witcher's lost fortress will brew the thing. Maybe I can help someday, I tell him, and he gives me the polite smile children give adults who promise the moon. Kid, I have a wall that turns effort into miracles. Watch me. So my evenings settle into the best routine of my life. I cook a mountain of food, 8 whole roosters braised at a sitting, because knights and Witchers refuel like locomotives, and our table seats 3 professional gluttons. The Witchers appear at my door with supernatural punctuality. I honestly start to suspect Kalen's mutations include a dinner sense. We eat ourselves stupid in under 10 minutes, and then we beat each other with swords in my backyard. Elias burps, declares he could eat this forever, and volunteers us all for the same arrangement tomorrow. His teacher, a man who once charged me by the hour to exist nearby, keeps agreeing to guard the boy on the walk over every night, coincidentally at dinner time. The first night, it's Elias who spars me, and 13 years old or not, the kid is a wall. I open at 80% and he catches it on his blade like I've tossed him an apple. An hour in, we break for the herbal tea I brew, and I watch him smell it, lick it, then drink. Just a habit. Witchers aren't afraid of most toxins. And something in that reflex, a child checking his drink for poison as automatically as breathing, tells me more about his upbringing than any biography could. Over the tea, he explains what's actually eating him. The green grass trial isn't a test, it's a potion. The mutagen that makes apprentices into Witchers, with a success rate that would get any human trials shut down in my old world. 3, maybe 4 survivors in 10. And Elias can't even roll those dice, because he and Kalen were thrown out of the Witcher's fortress. He won't say why, and no outside alchemist will risk brewing a potion this niche with materials this scarce. He met the physical standard a year ago. He's been standing at a locked door ever since, getting stronger and going nowhere. Maybe I can help someday, I tell him. I already brew boiling blood potion. He gives me the polite smile children give adults who promise the moon, and picks his sword back up. Kid, I have a wall that turns effort into miracles. Watch me. After they leave each night, Kalen tells his student the thing he doesn't tell me. Elias complains that sparring me is like fencing a river. Every session I'm smoother, faster, harder to hold. And his teacher, applying ointment to the bruises a knight squire gave a mutated monster hunter, agrees. Yes, the progress is continuous, and it isn't just the sword. His endurance is also constantly improving. It is really unbelievable, as if there is no limit to the improvement of his physical fitness. There isn't, Kalen. There's just a wall with numbers on it, and a man too stubborn to stop feeding it. While I'm playing house, the countryside is bleeding. A village called Zalduo, 7 kilometers northwest, at the foot of the mountains. Picture it, because someone should have to. A bonfire crackling at the village gate. A circle of short, dark figures wearing nothing but hides in the freezing wind, sweat steaming off them anyway. A woman in a feathered headdress, face painted scarlet and white, raising a small silver bell whose chime cuts through everything. Basins of red liquid splashed across the ground in a pattern, an 8-pointed star ringed with symbols that hurt to look at even secondhand. And in the shadows, rows of bound children, whimpering. I'll spare you the stone knives. What matters is the craft that came after. The small, harvested hearts melting together into a crawling gel. The gel eating the little corpses one by one, slowly at first, then a body per swallow, until what stood up at the end was a boar the size of a cart, pale as a drowned thing. Then the woman opened her mouth, spun gray silk around the beast like a spider dressing a fly, stroked the cocoon like a lover, and hatched it into the second draft. Tusks doubled, a ridge of bone spurs, and a belly lined with eyes. Human eyes. Eyes with expressions. Cruel ones, frightened ones, insane ones. The eyes of its ingredients, still watching. She wrote 1 word in charcoal on the ground before she led her new god project into the mountains, and it was a promise. Reese investigates, finds the village slaughtered to the last soul, and finds a word scrawled at the scene in the occult tongue. Ultio. Revenge. He writes to the cathedral in Rhine City that night. Remnants of the Panless cult, an order the church broke 1,000 years ago and chased into the mountains, are back. And they've successfully performed blood and flesh alchemy, the forbidden spell that builds monsters out of massacre. He requests reinforcements. He signs it alone because he is the only servant of the Lord for 30 kilometers in any direction. And in Rhine City, in a Gothic cathedral crowned with a stone torch, a cardinal named Flander is briefing his bishops on something so much larger that Reese's letter will read like a footnote. The red moon, the fog already swallowing the far seas, an old prophecy the heathens have been quoting. When the stars are in their rightful place, relay will rise from the seabed, and the old ones will return to the world. The church's secret scriptures, the cardinal knows, agree with the enemy on the facts. The old ones, the things that spread fear and madness through dreams. The most famous of them, dwelling in that drowned city, were never defeated. The Bible's account of gods sealing demons is a bedtime edit. The truth is, the spiritual tide went out, and the monsters simply lay down to hibernate like frogs in the mud, in cities scattered across the world's sea floors. Now the tide is coming back in. A mortal who so much as sees one of their true forms wakes up as their instrument. The fog is their breath arriving ahead of them. The church has 6 months before it reaches the kingdom. The plan has a name, Project Sanctuary, and the cardinal ends the briefing exhausted because he is one of the few men alive who knows exactly how much of the plan is engineering and how much is prayer. None of us small people know any of this yet. We're busy with dinner and swordsmanship. History has a way of doing its paperwork over your head. What Reese does share, in the days after Zalduo, is education. Long afternoons of monster lore in the study, vampires and werewolves, and the taxonomy of things that want to eat us. And one afternoon, called away mid-lecture on urgent business, he pauses at the door and drops a sentence designed to keep a cocky student humble. "You didn't think I showed my full strength at the ranch, did you? That was less than half. After you advance, you'll find yourself in a new world. Until then, don't take risks." Less than half. I replay the goat monster fight, the blur my eyes couldn't follow, the throne flail like a meteor, and quietly reshelve my mentor from skinny accountant to iceberg. This world keeps doing that. Every time I think I've measured someone, they show me the part underwater. What I do get is a house call. Father Alaric, Reese's old classmate, pale, cheerful, and traveling with 2 armored knights, arrives from the city carrying the paperwork for my membership and a potion. The 2 priests do the old friend's ritual first. Alaric surveys the shabby church, needles Reese about his exile, and gets the confession under the banter. Top of his exorcist class, dumped in the sticks for lacking a patron. 4 years of learning to rely on himself. Then Alaric asks about the squire, hears he reached the advancement standard in 1 month, and congratulates his friend on striking gold, with the particular envy of a man whose own parish produces paperwork. And then the cheer drains out of him, and he hands his old friend a briefing that turns Reese's knuckles white around the pages. The demons from the stars didn't die. Their drowned cities are surfacing. Keep the sacred flame burning forever. Reese reads it twice and asks if this is a bad novel. His friend just watches him with the eyes of a man who did his own disbelieving last week. And when Reese protests that his flock's faith couldn't power a nightlight, Alaric says the quiet part with a diplomat's smile. When the gray fog descends and despair spreads, they will all become devout. Despair, it turns out, is the church's best recruiter. Remember that line, it comes back. But first, my graduation. They armor me up, stand me in the training yard, and Reese explains the ceremony with characteristic warmth. This potion burns your life force as fuel. You will fight the 2 knights to the death, and in that furnace either your seed of life sprouts and you become extraordinary, or you burn out and die tired. Are you ready? I drink it without ceremony. It goes down like boiling water and lights a bonfire behind my sternum, heat crawling out to my skin until I must be visibly steaming. The first knight, a redbeard named Eric, opens with a bored, "Come, either walk the path of transcendence or die by my sword," and the classic underestimation of the new guy. I put my sword tip against his throat in about 4 exchanges. From the sideline, his partner Brant laughs out loud. "Eric, you should change your arrogant ways." And Alaric dresses the big man down with a proverb about lions and rabbits, while his face cycles from red to white. Wonders for morale. Mine, not his. Brant takes over and takes it seriously, and for 20 minutes I get an education in what extraordinary bodies do to sword fights. His attacks come like a river in flood, and I bleed from a dozen shallow places while learning to be water around a rock. But offense costs more than defense, and Slippery survives strong. 20 minutes in, the vigorous knight is breathing hard, and I'm still there, which visibly annoys everyone's predictions. On the sideline, the 2 priests conduct live commentary. "Your servant improves during the fight," marvels Alaric. "That's what I like best about him," says Reese, with the smugness of a man showing off a horse he got for free. They swap the fresh man back in. The pace doubles. My arms turn to lead, my throat to a scorched pot. Blood glues my shirt to my back everywhere the armor doesn't cover, and I gradually forget why I'm fighting. The world narrows to the lean warrior's silhouette and the arc of his sword. Off-field, Reese starts to fret aloud. At this intensity, the seed of life should have sprouted long ago. Did you bring the wrong potion? And Alaric answers with the sentence that would make me laugh if I had breath to spare. The seed hasn't sprouted because your servant hasn't found his limit yet. You're worried he's failing. He's actually too durable to trigger the win condition. Finally, Brant solves me. A feint, a step, a sweep at my neck faster than anything before, and I watch the tip of his sword grow enormous in my vision, with my body a half-second too slow to answer, and something in my abdomen ignites. Heat floods out to every finger like a dam failing. My sword arm moves faster than my thoughts, and steel rings on steel an inch from my neck. The blade still kisses me, half a finger deep along the throat, a souvenir, but I'm alive, and the fire in me isn't the potion anymore. It's mine. "Good," says Reese, appearing beside me between blinks. "You've advanced. That's it?" I feel exactly the same, I start to say, and then the hunger hits. Not appetite, hunger. A black hole opening for business behind my navel, and the priest points me at the dining room, where a whole roast suckling pig is already waiting, because of course he pre-ordered my Transcendence catering. I bite it nose first. I regret nothing. The wall, consulted between courses, confirms the graduation in its own dialect. The seed of life burning in my chest, my proficiency counters all suddenly hungrier, and the quiet arithmetic that matters most. Ordinary men need 3 to 5 years to reach this line. Church prodigies raised from the cradle need 2, and the deadbeat from another universe did it in 6 weeks on rice, spite, and homework. Somewhere in the fine print, I can feel the ceiling of this world lifting to see how high I'll actually go. So can I. That's the problem with walls that show you numbers. They never let you pretend you're done. 1 month and change ago, a fat patrolman told me to enjoy my last supper. Tonight, I'm an extraordinary being eating a celebration pig bought by the church. The universe said LOL, but I said it back. Word travels. That evening, Kalen studies me across my dinner table with an expression like a man rereading a receipt, and then does something extraordinary for a professional cheapskate. He hands over every potion recipe he owns, free. Because Elias needs the green grass potion, and I'm now the only alchemist within reach crazy enough to attempt it. And if practicing on Kalen's other recipes sharpens my hands for the one that matters, that's an investment. We're friends, right? Says the man who charges friends by the hour. I take the papers and don't point out the contradiction. Some friendships are best audited quietly. Then comes a humbling week because my next project can't be stabbed, brewed, or shot. It has to be drawn. Talismans. The golden light charm gave me 2 recipes and the materials condense in my own head. Sunflame liquid from dawn meditations, moon dew from dusk ones. But the drawing has to be one continuous, perfect stroke. And it turns out that in 2 lifetimes I have accumulated the calligraphy skills of a concussed pigeon. 300 sheets of scrap paper, 300 deformed symbols. The golden wall watches all of it and, when the skill finally registers, greets me with, "Your talent for drawing talismans is amazing, and you've only just gotten started." I got sarcasm quoted by my own sheet, in my own head. Grind through it. By dawn, I've turned 15 sheets of real talisman paper into 8 functioning heart-cleansing talismans, silverlight and all, and the mockery tastes like victory anyway. The formal knighting comes days later. Parchment scroll, ritual words, "May you be the sword that guards the lambs." And I'd be lying if I said the ceremony didn't raise goosebumps, which is exactly why religions have ceremonies. Alaric, presiding, asks the new soldier for a demonstration of the flame breath he supposedly mastered in a single day. And when the white steam rises off my body on cue, the city priest's compliment slips out with real weight under the courtesy. Talent like this would be top tier even in the Pope's own flame guard. Reese accepts the praise on my behalf with the serenity of a man who discovered the stock before it listed. He got here entirely through his own hard work, he says, which is true, and also the exact sentence a broker uses about his best asset. Then the 2 visiting knights take over my education, which immediately devolves into gambling because Brant bets 2 spiritual coins that I can't last 15 minutes against a still salty Eric. Quick vocabulary note because this matters later. Spiritual coins. Jade discs condensed from the spirits of the dead, the hard currency of the extraordinary world. 1 coin trades around 110 gold shields, and powerful people burn them as fuel. The extraordinary economy runs on souls. Try not to think about it during transactions. Everyone else here doesn't. The match begins with me discovering I'm the rooster in a cockfight. He lasts 15 minutes. 2 spiritual coins, Brant announces, taking book. Zara bets against me. Even I get offered a line. Bet on yourself, newcomer. Though if you bet on a win, you'll need to last 20. And I take it on credit. 1 coin. Because a man should always have skin in his own game. Then Eric, humiliated twice now, skips the honor and opens with Flame Cross, the church's signature burning sword art, flames running down his arm into the blade. The move you use on monsters, not new recruits. And Brant's face goes gray. Because nobody briefed the rookie that this was on the menu. The light screen of the first slash takes a strip of meat off my right arm before I fully process that we're doing this for real. So we do it for real. I stop retreating and walk into him. Hit and run against a desperate man doesn't work, but neither does his desperation against a man who spends a pinch of hourglass sand at every rhythm change. His ultimate technique burns fuel like a bonfire burns paper. My frequency sips. 15 minutes comes and goes with Brant shouting time and both of us ignoring him. And somewhere in there, the fight teaches me something the drills never did. A warm current wakes in my body and starts flowing on its own. My first taste of the life force the parchment promised. I ride it, wear the big man's inferno down to embers, and finish with my sword tip at his Adam's apple. Again. I won again this time, I tell him, which is factually accurate and socially unforgivable. Arik throws his sword at the rack and storms off. Brant pays me my winnings with the face of a bookie reassessing his whole business model. That fight pays out twice. Once in Brant's coin, tossed over with a rueful, "Feel that power for yourself." And once on the wall, where a line of text turns a color I've never seen. Basic swordsmanship, ultimate, special effect, heart of the sword. Deeper insight into all blades, more damage with every sword, faster learning of every sword art to come. A basic skill, ground past its own ceiling until it broke through into something with a passive aura. So that's what the wall does when you refuse to stop. Noted. Deeply, greedily, noted. The breathing technique lands the same day. Flame breath, the church's engine for turning food into fire and fire into force. The parchment says warriors take weeks to feel the life current. I feel it that afternoon, mid-drill, because I've been running a superior circulation technique since week 1, and my body already knows the roads. Brant watches me master in one day what took him seasons, announces that comparison is the thief of joy, and goes off to find Eric, the only man who understands his feelings. I like these two. They lose with such useful commentary. The talisman division ramps up alongside the swordwork. 64 heart-cleansing talismans, 42 golden light. My success rate climbing batch by batch, and I run the product tests on the only volunteer whose safety waivers I trust, me. Burn a talisman over water, drink the result. A coolness spreads to the skull and the world goes still as an old well, thoughts sharp as skate blades. Slap one directly on skin, same effect, no water needed, adheres like it grew there. Its golden sibling wraps me in the sensation of a winter sunbeam and, per the fine print, expels external evils, a claim I can't yet test for lack of a cooperative evil. I also brew my first power potions from Kalen's recipes, 5% more muscle in a bottle, and start assembling what I privately call the loadout, a tactical vest of small pockets, one vial of everything, because the herbalist who walks into battle unbuffed is insulting his own profession. And then the world starts moving again, and it does not move politely. First, the small horror, a mountain village named Kalim, 7 days hike into the peaks, where strong hunters raise strong children, and the fog arrived early. For days, the villagers' tempers fray for no reason, brothers brawling over nothing, families at each other's throats, and the old headman lies awake planning a village meeting that will never happen. In the night, he hears his granddaughters quarreling again, then a scream cut short, and walks in to find the younger one standing alone by the bed, hair hanging over a red-eyed smile. "Where's your sister?" "I ate it," says the 5-year-old. Grandpa scolds her. "Your mouth is far too small for such nonsense," and the little girl agrees. "My mouth is small," she says as her face begins to move, "but it can open very wide." And it opens. And opens. The village is gone by morning, wailing and chewing in the dark, and we won't learn about any of it for weeks. The fog moves faster than the news, and it starts with the smallest doors. What we get instead is the fog itself. It comes off the Andes like a tide, gray and wrong, smelling faintly of fish. Reese takes me and the 2 nights into the mountains hunting the cult that butchered Zalduo, my first field mission, complete with a 50-pound pack and the sobering realization that heathens who worship squid gods do not leave forwarding addresses. What finds us instead, at nightfall, at our camp, is the fog itself, hours early, rolling down off the peaks smelling of fish, visibility collapsing to 10 meters while we're still pitching tents. Then the howling starts, from every direction at once, wolves answering wolves in voices that have too much violence in them. Eric, bless his appetite, hears a bear roar join the chorus and celebrates the incoming meat delivery. Brant, a hunter's son, gives him the middle finger on principle. When wolves hunt, bears don't march with them. Nothing marches together. Something is conducting. Reese reads it the same way, and enchants all 3 of our swords burning red without being asked, which from him is a formal declaration of concern. The retreat afterward teaches me one more piece of field wisdom. At the rest stop where he hands out bottles of the church's most precious strategic resource like sports drinks, holy water, it turns out, is also the world's best energy supplement, warm all the way down with a feeling of a hot meal arriving directly in the bloodstream. My first ever taste of the sacred liquid 3,000 faithful pray into existence, and I drink it to settle a growling stomach mid-March. Somewhere, a theologian faints. The priest just tells me not to waste a drop. Then the wildlife arrives, and it's the local fauna the way a burnt house is architecture. Wolves with festering sores and green anemone tendrils waving out of their bodies. Lynxes weeping yellow mucus. A 3-meter bear with green whiskers growing out of its eye socket, which announces itself by dropping out of the sky onto one of its own wolves and bursting it like fruit. They tighten the circle around our camp with drool that smokes where it lands, and Reese calls the play. 3 of us punch outward, he guards the backs, and we carve through dozens of them by firelight. My first real battle, sword burning, wolves opening on my blade like ugly flowers, no time to be scared, which I highly recommend as an anti-fear technique. Then Eric holds up his clawed hand, swelling around a lynx scratch, green down sprouting from the wound edges, and asks in a strange voice whether anyone else is hungry. He's looking at the scattered organs on the ground when he says it. Licking his lips. Reese burns the infection out with holy light, pours a bottle of holy water down him, and Eric vomits green threads for 3 minutes straight. Mission cancelled. We run for town through fog that has already thickened behind us, 4 men and 1 oil lamp. And here's where the night gets personally complicated. The lamp runs on faith. Literal faith, you pray into it, and pure spiritual light pushes back the fog. Reese's prayer bought us 20 meters of visibility. When my turn comes and I mumble the scripture, the lamp gives me 3 pathetic meters, and Eric snorts out loud. So I stop pretending to pray, hold the lamp in both hands, and quietly run 1 cycle of the golden light charm. The lamp detonates. Light floods out 20+ meters, fog boiling back on every side, and Reese makes a sound like a man swallowing his entire theology. You've grasped part of the true meaning of the flame god's law, he says finally, somewhere between reverence and naked envy, because comprehending law is a threshold some third-tier masters never cross, and his self-taught farmhand of a squire just did it into a lantern. I do not correct him. My divine insight is a Taoist meditation from a world with subway systems, but if the man wants to file it under his own god, that's a very convenient clerical error. We make it back before dawn, hammering on the church gate while the sky grays, and Alaric rides for the city at first light to warn the other parishes. Old friend, you're on your own here, which by now is less a farewell than Reese's job description. The town gets one day. Reese spends it lighting the sacred flame atop the bell tower, a fire with a golden edge that fog cannot cross, and herding 3,000 people into the square, at gunpoint where necessary, because nothing about leave your homes and camp at the church indefinitely sells itself. When the crowd assembles, grumbling, I fire a shot into the air for silence, and the priest delivers a speech 2 sentences long. The fog comes tonight, the flame protects, stay in its light or die. Then he steps off the cart and walks away, leaving 3,000 questions unanswered on purpose. I believe in the Lord, but people need to eat, don't they? Someone yells at his back. Won't we freeze out here? He doesn't turn around. In private, I ask why. And he gives me the answer Alaric gave him, wearing a colder face than I've ever seen on him. People can't appreciate salvation without sampling despair. The flame runs on faith, and faith runs low. Some will leave tonight. Sure, the priest is exaggerating. Don't stop them. I want living examples. Those few sentences will decide who's alive next week. I look at my mentor, healer, extortionist, shepherd, actuary, and understand something about power I never learned in an office. At a certain altitude, arithmetic and mercy become the same job, and somebody has to do it with a straight face. I can't change any of that. I can only get strong enough that one day the arithmetic includes my opinion. I want to be the one deciding, not the one being decided about. And if that thought should scare me, it's too late. It just feels like a plan. The Witchers move into the church at Reese's invitation. The town suddenly values anyone who can kill monsters, and I hand Kalen 2 heart-cleansing talismans, free, for inner turmoil. He takes them with the enthusiasm of a man accepting a pamphlet. Remember those 2 pieces of paper. They're about to save more than his life. Because 3 nights later, the cult stops hiding. It starts as a chorus, human voices in the fog, ragged at first, then synchronizing into one wild chant that swallows even the drums. The crowd in the square goes rigid, and then the fog parts and the boar walks out. Zalduo's boar, the one built from murdered children. 4 meters of corpse-pale flesh, 4 tusks, a ridge of bone spurs, and a belly full of eyes that dart independently across the crowd. People who meet those eyes stagger where they stand. Some faint off the wall. Behind it come the beasts, a 100-strong wave of mutated wolves, lynxes, bears with green whiskers, things without proper names, and behind them, the drum beats quickening like a pulse before violence. Patrol gunfire accomplishes decoration. Bullets punch thumb-sized holes that leak green and change nothing. One lucky rifle round through an eye socket drops a lynx, and that's the militia's entire highlight reel. Reese doesn't wait for a second. The moment the boar leaped from the fog, he enchanted every extraordinary weapon in reach, ignited his tower shield, and announced, with what I can only call joy, I'll take the biggest one. Then he charged a monster 8 times his weight, and the ground shook in both directions. Kalen fights the way a scalpel fights, but first he fights the way a merchant fights, flagging down the priest mid-crisis to confirm his hourly rate against the Sorcerer Guild's official monster price list. Half rates, Reese counters, since you're defending yourself too. Deal concluded, invoice implied, and the white wolf goes to work. A thrown sword like a javelin through a bear, the Quen sign shimmering gold around him, the Igni sign turning a wedge of the beast tide into shrieking torches. I anchor my own stretch of chaos, revolver first, aiming for eye sockets because nothing else on these things is soft, then sword when the range closes, a mutant monkey with its eyes on stalks learning about the fan of a burning blade. And still the beasts pour through, and the ugliest math of the night writes itself in the crowd behind us. The people who dared to pick something up and fight mostly lived. The people who only ran mostly didn't. Reese and the boar wrecked the square between them, house by house. His flail lands like a church bell falling downstairs. The gray spirit armor ripples and holds, ripples and holds. He shears off a bone spur. The beast smashes him back through a wall he then walks out of, on fire in the decorative sense. It's a stalemate at an altitude none of the rest of us can reach, and then the fog starts raining blood. Actual blood, out of the mist, corrosive where it lands, hissing pits into Reese's shield. Under the cover of that filthy rain, the boar opens its mouth wide, and I watch translucent shapes, human-shaped, animal-shaped, stream off the battlefield and down its throat. It's eating the souls of the freshly dead, fattening on its own battle. It gives us one long look with its wall of eyes, files us under unfinished business, and walks back into the fog. It leaves because it chooses to. Nobody pretends otherwise. Then comes the part of the battle nobody sings about. The wounded. Holy water triage in the churchyard. And the rule is simple and monstrous. The corrupted who can be saved, save. The ones already mutating are gone, and what wears their face afterward is not them. Reese quietly hands me that job. A priest must stay beloved. His enforcer doesn't, and I take it, because I'd rather it be someone who'll do it clean. The shift has exactly one bright moment, and I ruin it professionally. A wounded man convulses and knocks Serafina flying. I cross the yard in a blink and catch the nun an inch off the flagstones, and my mouth, running entirely without supervision, says, "Feels good," before setting her upright. She doesn't have time to react, because that's the moment her patient, old Lenny, veins climbing his face like ivy, surges up with his eyeball blossoming into green tentacles, and my gun is in his mouth before his roar finishes. The square goes silent. Someone screams that I've murdered him. I look at 300 people who watch their neighbors get eaten because nobody would pick up a pitchfork, and I tell them the truth with the bark still on it. The mutated aren't the people you knew, and if you'd had the courage of these four-legged monsters, fewer of you would be dead. No one meets my eyes. I feel like the villain in someone else's story, and I do it anyway. This world doesn't grade on style, and it isn't done with us. Not that night. The magic bell rings, the one nobody can silence, and Reese and I walk out into a square gone silent as the bottom of a lake. The corpse cleaners lie unconscious where they dropped, some withered like old fruit, skin gone to dried leather. Something has come to feed on the fresh grief of the battlefield, a body integration of evil thoughts, a knot of every scream and death terror from the fight, fused into one drifting sphere the size of a sumo wrestler, trailing tentacles, freckled with dim lights like 100 half-closed eyes. And here my mentor, fresh from nearly dying to one monster, delivers the sales pitch of his life. Do I know how spiritual coins are made? That thing floating over there, he explains, is a pile of pre-processed spiritual coins that happens to be haunted. If we kill it slowly and thoroughly, we harvest a fortune. If we call Kalen for help, we split the fortune 3 ways and the coward might scare it off anyway. Risk level? 3 or 4 out of 10 at most. Low risk, high yield. 2 men against a cloud of concentrated despair, alone at night for money. I hear myself say, "Let's do it," with genuine enthusiasm. And somewhere in the back of my head, my old office self quietly closes his eyes. You can take the man out of the startup, but apparently not the other way around. The plan. Reese prays loudly, which to this creature works like a matador's cape. Pure spiritual light being both insult and buffet, tanks it, wears it down, then herds it to me for the golden finisher. Reese's opening act is genuinely great theater. He plants himself in the square and starts loudly reciting worship prayers, radiating spiritual light like a lighthouse, the monster-fighting equivalent of a tank hitting the taunt button, and the creature obligingly charges him. His flail drags black smoke and gray flakes out of it with every pass. His armor's flame patterns sear it on contact. From where I stand, it looks like a winning grind. It's a losing one. The thing doesn't just take hits, it broadcasts, an ambient radio of madness, every dead man's last scream on loop, and the longer you fight inside that signal, the faster your sanity files for bankruptcy. 10 minutes in, Reese has stopped tanking and started brawling, swings wild, eyes wrong, hallucinating little victories that aren't happening. He bites his own tongue bloody to snap out of it and remembers, far too late, the textbook line he memorized as a boy. Never slug it out with something that lowers your reason. His enchantment timer runs out. His greed has walked him to the middle of a lake and the ice is singing. When he shouts, "Let's do it," a full act early, I understand he's going under. So I close my eyes in the middle of a battlefield and meditate. Split attention, one thread of awareness tracking the fight, the other running the golden light charm at full burn while the priest buys seconds with the last of his sanity. The visualization comes twice as fast as ever before, terror being an excellent focus aid, and when the golden light detonates out of me, the darkness the creature swims in cracks like ice. It shrinks, panics, and charges the source of its pain, me, a black comet of dead men's madness. My first golden detonation cracks it. The sphere shrinks by half, tentacles boiling away, but the thing that reassembles from the wreckage is worse. A bear's head on a man's body, studded with extra claws, its core gone deep black and churning with transparent bubbles. Inside each bubble, a small human or animal shadow, incomplete, thrashing. The evil thoughts of everything that died here tonight, and the priest's textbook was wrong about one thing. Wounded, it doesn't flee. It goes all the way mad instead, and crosses the square at me like an arrow leaving a bow. I meet it with a fan of thrown golden light talismans and every grain of sand in the hourglass. The talismans ignite mid-air into a golden sea. The hourglass freezes the thing at the border for one bought instant, and the sea closes over it. It bursts like a firework, a slow, gorgeous rain of white and pale gold spirit aura drifting down over the square, the raw stuff of souls, settling on the cobblestones like the world's most morally complicated snow. Reese is face down and dreaming badly, so I stick a heart-cleansing talisman to his forehead, a golden light talisman to his cheek, pour holy water into him, and watch his breathing even out into something almost smug. Then I collect the snow, all of it. The night still has one scene left, and it's the one I keep. Around the corner, in the torchlight, a little girl is standing with her arms spread between Kalen's woman's raised sword and her kneeling father. The man, Gus, a blacksmith, is mid-mutation, green threads crawling in his wounds, holding his own transformation back with nothing but clenched teeth. Procedure says he dies. The girl, Lyra, has already lost her mother and siblings tonight, and she informs a professional monster slayer, with her legs shaking, that he can't have her father too. Procedure hasn't met my talismans yet. I knock the girl out gently. She'll hate me for it, briefly, and offer the man an experiment instead of an execution. Silver talisman to the forehead, gold to the chest, and if you can force your mutating hand to hold the thing that burns your corruption, maybe you live. He grabs the golden paper like it's a rescue rope and screams through it. When even that stalls, I brew the talisman into water and pour the whole bowl down his throat while Kalen pins him. Drink up, hero. And for one long minute, the man dies, stops breathing. Kalen starts composing the eulogy. Then Gus sits up like a zombie, vomits a bucket of green filth, and asks, pale, gaunt, alive, and entirely himself, whether his daughter is safe. First documented cure of active corruption in, as far as anyone here knows, the history of this world. Administered by a fake herbalist with a folk remedy from another universe. Kalen stares at the talisman ash in the bowl, and then at me, recalculating my market value in real time. I'd like to say I stayed humble. I did not. I'm probably the only one in the world with this ability, is a sentence I say out loud, to a professional information trader, like a man who has never once suffered consequences. Hold that thought for about 200 pages. Postscript to the miracle. The next morning, Serafina hunts me down radiating fury, because Lyra, the little girl I chopped on the neck mid-crisis, still hasn't woken, and her freshly saved father is frantic. I explain, with the full confidence of a man improvising, that I calibrated the knockout for 12 hours precisely, for her own good, and she'll wake this afternoon. The nun wrinkles her nose at me, pronounces judgment. You went too far. And marches off. The girl wakes that afternoon, on schedule, and I graciously decline to gloat about it, out loud, where the nun can hear. The morning after inventory changes everything, twice. First, the hourglass. Purifying that knot of dead men's evil didn't just pay in spirit aura. My golden light charm jumped 1,400 points overnight, a month of grinding in one detonation, and the hourglass itself grew a 3rd star. New ability, I think faster. Not a metaphor. Thoughts accelerated a 3rd, body a 10th, reflexes a 10th, everything running slightly ahead of the world for as long as the sand holds. I name it bullet time after a movie no one here will ever see, and mourn briefly for a universe where that joke would have landed. Second, the priest. Reese wakes up, hears exactly how close he came to being a cautionary tale, and does something I genuinely don't expect from a man who once confiscated 80% of my tip. He tears up our contract. New terms, 50-50 on all spoils, expenses shared. The church will be run by the two of us. Then he pushes the entire night's spirit aura across the table. All of it. I can't give much in return for saving my life. There it is. Under the ledgers and the interest rates, the man keeps accounts of a different kind too, and last night I got written into one of them. I take the aura because refusing would insult him, and file the feeling under things I didn't expect to find in this world. The town's own books get rewritten that week too. We cremate the battle's dead in one great fire, and afterward the prayer hall stays full without anyone hurting anybody. Men and women who watch their neighbors die, now praying like their lives depend on it, because they finally understand that this is literally the mechanism. The sacred flame burns brighter on the surplus. Alaric's cold prophecy, despair makes the devout, has come true on schedule, and the part nobody says aloud is that the church's whole survival engine runs smoother for it. I stand at the back of a packed service, listening to 300 voices power the walls that keep them alive, and can't decide if I'm watching faith or infrastructure. In this world, I'm learning, the difference is bookkeeping. Then he shows me where the money goes, the sanctuary. Deep under the church, down a spiral stair behind a bookshelf, through a stone door that opens only for his holy emblem and self-destructs for anyone else's crowbar. A domed hall inscribed wall to ceiling with the magic circle that drinks the congregation's prayers. At the far end, a pale gold angel holds a stone sword over a basin, and while I watch, the sword's flame patterns light up top to bottom, and a single silver drop falls with a chime like a small bell. Undiluted holy water, grade 0, the concentrate they cut with clean water to make every bottle the town has ever bled for. That place of holy baptism, I say, pointing at the ceiling, it was up there too, wasn't it? What, still thinking about your 100 gold shields? The priest's grin could sell indulgences. I'm not giving that money back. Also in the corner, a squat silver cabinet worth 100 spiritual coins that presses spirit aura into currency, 3 buttons, idiot-proof, and Reese demonstrates it with the pride of a man showing off a new stove. He teaches me the whole pipeline, including the exchange rates, gray coins, the cheap ones with faces still faintly visible inside and leftover screaming baked in, 80 gold. Golden coins, purified of every emotion, 200. The difference between them is months of prayer in the array. Or, as I discover that evening in my room with a teacup, the difference is 1 golden light talisman. I burn a talisman into water, drop a gray coin in, and by morning it's gold. My purification-flavored cultivation launders the currency of souls. I sit there staring at a 200 gold coin that cost me 80 plus a piece of paper and hear my own heartbeat change tempo. Every talisman I draw is now a mint. Don't tell anyone, I advise myself, with the track record you'd expect. The week after, I finally do what any transplanted nerd should have done sooner. I read Reese's whole library, cover to cover, 30-odd books, because in this world, knowledge costs more than meat, and the Golden Wall inhales it even faster than sword work. Monster lore, occult languages, geography, each book crystallizing into a permanent skill. The Spirit Master treatises are the ones I read twice. There are 2 roads up, the Warlock Guild writes. Quality, develop one spirit's powers to their peak, feeding it its own kind. Or quantity, bind multiple spirits and balance them against each other. Both roads have a toll booth, and the tolls are gruesome. Buying 2 spirits whose powers conflict and the balance fails explosively. The book cites a pioneer who bound fire and ice together and, the following year, was reduced to a dazzling firework. The guild's actuaries write about human beings the way I used to write about server crashes. But buried in the same treatise is the theory that explains my existence. Spirits that naturally restrain each other barely corrupt their host at all. And better, the guild's dream scenario, resolving the evil spirit's corruption while maintaining its pure spirituality. The holy grail their researchers can't crack? That's just my Tuesday. My meditation burns the evil off my captive spirit every single day, leaving the horsepower and skimming off the madness. I am, walking around unlabeled, the most advanced Spirit Master experiment in the world, conducted accidentally by a jail inmate on himself, which suggests an upgrade path nobody sane would attempt. Get more spirits, feed them to each other, let the charm handle the sewage. I add it to the list, under find a city big enough to sell demons. Meanwhile, the town rebuilds itself into a fortress. The square sprouts a 3-meter stake wall with a fighting step behind it, twin watchtowers flanking an iron-barred gate, holy water oil lamps hung to burn away the fog where the sacred flames reach thins, and a killing field of angled, sharpened stakes outside with one deliberately crooked path through. The architecture of a town that has stopped hoping and started engineering. The Night Watch reorganizes to match. 16 posts of 3 men, 30 meters apart, crossbows overlapping, every fire on the perimeter a tripwire with a view. And in the middle of the construction, Gus the blacksmith, mended and fanatical, plants himself in front of me at sunset and asks to be my squire. His pitch is honest to the point of pain. He's a smith. His forging beats anything this town has seen, and since the night the talisman saved him, he's discovered his strength has grown. He rolls up a sleeve to prove it, arm bronzed in the dying light. What he doesn't say, because he doesn't have to. He stood next to his family and couldn't do anything, and he has decided, cell by cell, never to be that man again. I offer him my open palm and tell him to hit it with his best. He steps back, sinks his weight, and delivers a punch with an actual wind behind it. Everything a smith's shoulders can give, and it's real. It stings my arm, and my palm doesn't move a centimeter. His face falls off a cliff. So I tell him the truth. That punch would have matched me from before my advancement, and if he keeps training, the extraordinary standard is genuinely in reach, and when the day comes, I'll consider his proposal first. A man who watched his family die and answered it by learning to hit harder. Some assets you pick for the balance sheet. Some you pick because the fire in them is the kind you want at your back. The next red moon, I spend inside the sanctuary with Reese, standard procedure for the spiritually sensitive now, and get the light show included in the room rate. As the crimson moon rises, the sanctuary's runes ignite silver and the walls turn transparent. We sit inside a bubble in an ocean of gray fog, watching things with claws and wrong geometry churn past the glass, close enough to count teeth. Ignore them, says the priest, opening his scripture like a man reading on a train. This magic circle held off the last era. They can't get in for years yet. Then he prays, and I run a quiet experiment. I feed spiritual coins to the hourglass. The sand drinks the essence greedily, a light rain of gold falling through my inner space, and the gray shadow of the old octopus thickens across the brass with every coin, evil regrowing right along with power, until I run one meditation cycle and burn the sediment off like morning frost. Fill, purify, repeat, while monsters press their faces to the walls. By dawn, the hourglass is stronger and cleaner than it's ever been, and I've confirmed the whole business model of my future. Power without the madness tax that everyone else in this profession pays. Everyone else. That same red moon, in a rented room above the Goat Inn, Kalen feels the rage arrive hours ahead of schedule, before the moon is even up, which has never happened, which means this is the moon that takes him. So he runs the quiet ritual of a man settling accounts. He knocks his own student unconscious with one merciful chop, lays him on the bed, and tucks a pre-written letter under his sword. The kind of letter you write when you don't plan to read anyone's reply. Then he drinks my 2 talismans like a condemned man taking communion, notes clinically that they help but not enough, picks up Elias's steel sword instead of his own good blades, and walks out to the mine to chain himself to the rock one last time. The moon rises. The wolf comes. The chains scream in their bolts, the clarity drains from his eyes, and then, mid-rage, a silver coolness blooms through the wolf's skull. The talisman water, hitting late and deep. The blood red recedes like a tide, and the white wolf sits down in his chains, sane inside the monster for the first time in years, flexing his claws in the crimson moonlight and saying, to nobody, that kid's stuff really works? He licks his own nose, thoughtfully. Then, I'm told, he laughs. a sound the mind had definitely never heard before. He comes back to town at dawn carrying a whole roe deer over one shoulder, found one that wasn't mad, thought we'd check if it's edible, and noticeably taller and wider than the man who left, which I notice out loud and he denies with the panic of someone hiding a full-body secret. It's an illusion. It must be your illusion. Sure, Kalen. 2 centimeters of illusion. I let it go, but I make him wash the venison in golden talisman water before I'll cook it, because caution is a spice that goes with everything. I'm collecting other people's monsters the way some men collect debts, patiently and with interest. Also with interest, I raise my talisman price tenfold to 10 gold shields each the moment Kalen tries to reorder. He calls me greedier than a vampire and practically levitates with outrage. He also pays. Even the priest, arbitrating the dispute over roast venison, rules in my favor. Gold is going to depreciate, the man says, and miracle paper isn't. Efficacy, gentlemen, is the best salesman, and my free sample marketing campaign has officially concluded. The quiet weeks also give me lab time, and the lab produces 2 reports. Report 1, bullet time. I spend an evening under a table flipping a spiritual coin out of my own sightline and snatching it blind. 20 throws per condition, like the world's loneliest sports scientist. Verdict: thoughts a third faster, movement a 10th, reflexes a 10th. Not a superpower, a tiebreaker. In a fight between equals, 10% is the whole obituary. Report 2, a eulogy. My plan to reinvent gunpowder's angrier descendants dies in committee. I know TNT exists, I know roughly what goes in it, and that's it. Concentration ratios, reaction temperatures, purification, all of it lived in some corner of the internet I can no longer visit. I stem one quiet tear for every transmigrator novel where the hero industrializes a kingdom from memory. Gentlemen, we were lied to. The keyboard warrior knows a little of everything, and the operative word is little. So no bombs, just me. Fortunately, I'm improving faster than ammunition. Winter closes in, and the world shrinks to a checklist. The town of Payo, 1 valley south, the church there goes silent. 5 days, no word, which in this season is a diagnosis, not a mystery. Then Airbear, a bigger town, with 3 exorcist priests, 6 knights, and an ammunition factory. Overrun in a night, an exorcist and 4 knights dead. The cult's boar monster confirmed at the head of the assault. Bigger now, per the survivors. The map around us is going dark tile by tile, and our reinforcement request comes back stamped with the medieval version of, per our last email, survive the winter, everyone's busy. Rearmament follows the bad news the way it always does. Gus, my blacksmith, increasingly my armorer, reverse engineers a military crossbow from Reese's collection into something with a 120-meter kill range, and the priest orders a 100-man crossbow corps raised from the townsfolk. The camp melts down every iron pot in a half-mile radius for bolt heads, an entire town's kitchens converted to ammunition, and the nightly watch rotation goes from men with sticks to firing lines with overlapping arcs. Ordinary people can't fight the extraordinary, but 100 ordinary people with crossbows can make the extraordinary do arithmetic. The knights confirm the trend. On one of my watches, I'm touring the wall with Bram, a short, round watchman in a holed baseball cap who smokes hand-rolled cigarettes the width of a thumb and measures his shifts in them when he chokes mid-drag. My God, that's old John. And Joa. 7 human shapes have slipped into the firelight outside the wall. Townspeople, or they used to be. Faces blue and blurred, arms replaced by black tentacles. One of them casually snacking on a whisker pulled out of its own eye socket. I call the volley, and the watch fires on their own neighbors without a second's hesitation, which tells you what this autumn has done to everyone's theology. The bolts do nothing. My bullets blow holes that sprout tentacles instead of blood. I shoot one thing's brains out entirely, and it pauses, picks a dangling whisker off its own face, and eats it, expressionless, while a boy vomits off the walkway. So I vault the wall, carve the big one apart for science, and find the actual monster curled where the organs should be. A white, squid-like thing with a head like a spindle, wearing the person as a puppet suit, driving the body from inside the chest. The person was the vehicle. I skewer the remains on sharpened stakes, dissect them by lamplight for the night watch, and issue new doctrine. Aim for the belly, not the head, then quietly add another entry to my growing catalog of ways this fog unpersons people. The days, at least, pay better. Reese comes back from a mining run towing a captured iron-eating beast, an armored pangolin the size of a cart that eats ore and excretes refined slag, whose shed scales forge into featherweight armor coveted by every knight with a budget, plus 1 dead miner and a story. Kalen, along for the escort, gleefully reports that the priest nearly beat the priceless creature to death before being told what it was, then charged the church 200 gold for the identification. The taming program that follows is pure Reese. When the beast thrashes free of 6 strong men, he picks up his shield, asks everyone to step back, and administers 10 full minutes of percussion until the monster lies flat as a rug. There are 2 schools of animal taming, he lectures me afterward, hanging it from ironwood posts to starve sulky. Building a bond, slow, loyal results. Or this one. The beast side-eyes him from the frame with an expression I can only call litigious. The real prize isn't the animal, it's the implication. Iron-eating beasts only nest in rich veins, which means the exhausted mine has a fortune hiding under its floor. We exchange the look of two men who have just become secret co-owners of a mineral deposit. The church will get its cut, eventually, once we're sure how big it isn't. And Reese stops sugarcoating, and we drill like the doomed. Here I make the tactical error of telling my two mentors the plain truth, that my breathing technique is days from advancing, that I can feel the next rank coming the way you feel a sneeze. A month-old warrior does not say that to men who bled years for each tier. Kaylin tells me to my face I'm dreaming. You just advanced a month ago, are you kidding me? And Reese performs the concerned captain face and then privately pays Kaylin 20 gold shields to beat the delusion out of me. Full power, no mercy. For my own good. With a receipt, presumably. Even Elias is on the committee. I knock on their door that evening and catch the tail of the kid winding his teacher up like a boxing second. Hit him hard. You have to wake big brother up. With friends like these, who needs a heathen invasion? So that night, the white wolf stops being polite. Round 1 runs an hour and lulls me beautifully. Hard, honest sparring. His strength ahead of mine, my endurance ahead of his, both of us leaving deposits of blood and sweat on the yard. We break. I trot off to grab more holy water, feeling good about the exchange rate. And while I'm gone, Elias asks his teacher why he hasn't just flattened me as commissioned. And Kaylin, who has spent the break rediscovering something he lost with his exile, decides to earn his money and then some. When I return, he's drinking my holy water with a professional smile. Today I'll show you how worthwhile it is to hire me. Round 2, he uses the Witcher's secret arts. Adrenaline techniques, speed I've never seen on anything with 2 legs. Inside a minute, I'm parrying on instinct alone. Inside 3, my retreat runs out of yard, my back hits the training wall, and his blade parks a hair off my neck with a line of warmth already trickling down my collar. And there, nailed to the stone with my heart trying to exit through my ribs, I get the real lesson, the one nobody bought for 20 gold. I've been cultivating like a man building a bunker. Always the safe fight, the prepared fight, the fight I've already won on paper. The night the evil spirit tried to take my eyes, I fought like a cornered animal and won. And everything since has been me crawling back into the spreadsheet. But strength that flinches isn't strength, it's savings. When the thing that's stronger than you finally comes. And in this world, it always comes. The only question will be whether I forged a spine to go with the stats. Something shakes loose in my chest that has been bolted shut through 2 lifetimes of playing it safe. I laugh, actually laugh, blood on my teeth, and ask for another round. And Elias cheers from the fence like it's a festival. This time, I walk forward into his blade instead of away from it. Precision-heavy strikes come down like falling stars, and I meet them, cut for cut, sparks showering both our faces, and the fire in my chest rises to meet the madness like it was waiting for an invitation. Kaylin gets so caught up he ignites his sword with a fire sign by pure reflex, and the sight of those flames blooming toward me flips some ancient switch. I take the half step forward that shouldn't exist. My roar comes out of somewhere below my lungs. Heat detonates from my core into the steel, and 2 burning swords crash together in the dark, and the world's most surprised werewolf watches a month-old warrior break through to the 2nd tier of transcendence in the middle of their sparring match, while his own weapon arm goes numb from a wound that refuses to close. Wow, says the inside of Kaylin's head, in exactly those letters. He tells me so himself, later, after wine. That last part matters. When the dust settles, the wall shows me why. My basic swordsmanship has climbed past ultimate into a color I didn't know the interface had. Extreme, armor penetration, and a sharpness that lingers in wounds, unpicking them faster than flesh can knit. Kaylin spends 10 minutes that night poking his own arm, muttering about poison that isn't there. In the morning, I fetch water for Reese, wait for him to take a good gulp, and light my sword. The priest chokes, coughs, pounds his own chest, and then, to his credit, laughs until the rafters ring, because the delusion he paid 20 gold to cure turned out to be a weather forecast. 2 months from ordinary to flame warrior. He starts drafting the letter to the church about my 2nd stage breathing technique that same hour, and starts losing that particular arms race with me the same week. Then the sky starts trying to poison us. The autumn rains arrive, and they arrive wrong. Fog dissolved into every drop, a faint fish stink, and a slow rot that seeps into the mind of anyone it soaks. I tested on my own hand like an idiot with a hypothesis. 36 minutes to a burning sensation on a 2nd-tier body. Ordinary people get about 20 minutes of safety. The rain is going to fall for a week, and 3,000 people live under it in wooden shacks. The countermeasure we improvise becomes the town's whole new religion. Literally, the prayer hall runs around the clock. Shifts of townsfolk cycling through it day and night, because the purification array scrubs the soul rot off anyone who prays inside it. And, in a closed loop that would make any economist weep with joy, their prayers power the array and mint holy water while it cleans them. Reese initially waves off my alarm about slow accumulating pollution as overcaution, then funds it anyway, because our partnership has evolved to the point where you're paranoid, here's the budget, counts as agreement. Someone has to run all those extra services, and the priest and I have a war to manage, so I draft Seraphina. The nun's reaction is a masterpiece of horrified modesty. She studied 5 years at a church school. If she had pastor talent, someone would have noticed. The congregation will never accept a woman at the pulpit, and would I please take the scripture back? I don't. The first service, the whispers start before she opens her mouth. Where's the priest? What can a nun do? And she stands there going crimson. So I rise from the corner and ask the hall, in the voice I use on monsters, whether anyone objects to Sister Seraphina leading worship, seeing as the church plans to train her for the pastorate. Funny thing, nobody does. And here's the part I keep to myself. I made up the pastorate plan on the spot, but the world's spiritual tide is rising. Impossible things go on sale monthly, and if her bloodline has any spark in it, my lie is just a forecast. She leads the service beautifully. The resentful look she shoots me afterward is at least 40% gratitude, though I'd not stake gold on the exact split. 2 other discoveries fall out of that soggy week. 1. Sitting in the prayer hall while a few hundred people generate faith boosts my own meditation by a fifth. I have been sleeping on a free power leveling zone this whole time, like a man complaining of poverty while napping on a gold vein. 2, and bigger, at 10,000 points, the golden light charm crosses its threshold and hands me 2 spells that change my entire tactical existence. The Qingxin mantra first, a flicker of hand seals and a silent chant, and the mind goes still as a frozen lake, armored against fear, madness, charm, and whispering gods. Twice the strength of my talisman water at a fraction of the cost. Where the talisman gives you a raincoat against mental attack, the mantra gives you a roof. And then the one I've been waiting 2 lifetimes for, golden light body protection. The old Taoist stories always said this charm was armor and sword both, and I'd privately concluded mine was the discount version. All supplements, no miracles. Wrong. My skill was just too shallow to show its teeth. Now a breath and a seal wrap me in a skin of golden light, and I test it the way any responsible researcher would, by stabbing my own hand. Half force? Nothing. Full force, 2-handed, sword buried in the table through the webbing of my fingers, the film finally, grudgingly gives, at the exact output of a top second-tier attacker going all out. There's even a sustain mode that sips sunlight to stay up indefinitely. I sit in my rented room, bleeding slightly from science, grinning at a tabletop I've ruined, doing the tally. A shield that regrows, refreshed for the price of dawn. I stand in my room, glowing faintly gold, holding a self-inflicted paper cut from a sword, and grin like the aforementioned idiot. 4 layers of defense and counting. Somewhere in my past life, a project manager is still waiting for my status update, and I am bulletproof in another dimension. The rain takes 200 townspeople anyway, the ones whose pollution crossed the line before anyone noticed, who sprouted green threads and stopped being people. 7 days of it, the temperature falling towards snow, the town cut off from the world like a boat with the ropes gone. When the sun finally comes back, we walk the town in inspection teams. Open your mouth, show your eyes, no red, no green, next, and the inspection finds its exception the loud way. A scream, and I'm running rooftops toward a petite woman standing in the street over 4 down neighbors, vine patterns crawling her face, eyes gone to writhing red threads. She's holding a girl of 8 or 9. She hears my boots on the ridge tiles, turns, and throws the child's body against a doorpost hard enough that I don't need to check. Then she comes up the wall at me on all 4s, nails punch through her fingertips, moving like something that studied humans from illustrations. She meets my sword at the top of her leap and lands in 2 pieces. Inside the halves, blue filaments are still knitting, trying to reassemble their puppet. So I burn the remnants where they lie and give the crowd the standing order. Dry wood, fire, now, in a voice with no room in it. They look at me with that now familiar cocktail of gratitude and fear. I'm getting used to the taste. That should probably worry me more than it does. And the food is running out. The camp cook breaks it to me over a basin of potatoes, white flour reserves thinning, bacon counted in days, onions extinct, and, the real blow, meat gone entirely, because every animal on the hillside ranches mutated or vanished when the fog came down. The only livestock left alive in Zacktown are the church's horses, saved by sleeping inside the sacred flame's glow. My cooking skill is a violin with no strings. Worse, several extraordinary appetites now eat like furnaces, mine included, and the arithmetic of 3,000 mouths against one snowed-in larder does itself, which is how the whole town ends up owing its winter to a logging and mining expedition, and how the expedition walks straight into the next layer of this world's food chain. It starts with a feeling, eyes on me, out in the woods, malicious and patient. I'm running sword drills on a rise above the loggers when the sensation of being priced by something hungry crawls up my neck, and I quietly tighten the patrol schedule and tell the work groups to stay in each other's sight. The woods answer with a lesson in what happens between 2 head counts. A logger named Zuri waves off his crew to relieve himself behind a big tree. His friends rib him about his shy bladder all the way back to the soup pot, and while his crewmates are still joking, a drop of green saliva lands on his shoulder. He looks up into the face of a beautiful girl hanging upside down from the branches, emerald hair swaying, her eyes full of the specific desire you see in people looking at food. Then she lets go of the tree, and her mouth opens, and opens, and opens. At lunch we count heads and come up 2 short. I go into the trees with 3 crossbowmen at my back and find what's left in a clearing, a body high in the branches with red twigs growing through it, and a girl in a torn red shirt standing below, who tells me in a sweet voice that she's hungry. Behind me, wings. I mid-slide under the first diving shape when the girl sprouts her own wings and the clearing turns into a wheel of claws, 3 of them coordinating, one of them shrieking a note that lands like a bell struck inside my skull. I cut one out of the air on the upswing, take a claw across the golden shield for it, and put a bullet through a second one's wing before the survivors climb out of reach. The things call themselves nothing. We call them demon birds. Women's faces, bat wings, black claws, a shriek that scrambles the mind, and a taste for carrying people into the sky. And the survivors do the genuinely alarming thing. They learn. They start following the convoy at altitude, out of bowshot, watching. Anglers, Kalen observes, usually go home empty. The fish that got away swims off and forgets. These fish are circling the boat, taking notes on the fishermen. And while everyone's eyes are on the sky, the ground gets Old Garth. My herb gatherer, the sweet greedy grandpa who calls me Great Master, is off on his own when he catches a scent on the wind, black sage. A whole thicket of it, 20 or 30 lush stalks by a quiet puddle, the herb that's been making him rich, growing free for the taking. He's on his knees digging with a collector's tenderness when the puddle behind him stands up. The slime takes his legs first, then his back, and his shovel just stays in it, like a spoon in dough. He screams for help exactly once. Then the green flows over his head, turns transparent, and pours itself down his throat like water finding a drain. Here's the detail that keeps me up later. Garth fights. Even swallowed, the old man gets his hands on his 2 bottles of holy water, his safety net bought with my gold, and gulps them both. Smoke pours from his mouth, and then his own hands reach in and scoop the holy water back out, fingers scalding because he isn't driving anymore. The thing wearing him stands in the reeds for a while, learning the controls. Then it picks up the shovel and goes back to digging herbs, because Garth's routine is now its camouflage. The thing that walks back to town that evening sells me his day's harvest with his smile, banters with the gate guards about buying everyone drinks, licks a drip of drool with a tongue just slightly too fast, and pauses under the church's magic bell to give it a long, private smirk. The bell that detects monsters stays silent. It knows how to hide under a human soul now. And that night, in the workers' barracks, Garth opens his mouth in the dark, and a translucent snake thing pours out, stretching into a film like a cicada's wing. It settles over the loudest snorer's face and glows, gently, while the man's snoring fades. Then the next bed, then the next. Every man in that room, grazed like a pasture, one dimming face at a time. And in the morning, they'll joke about their dark circles and how badly they slept. And old Garth will look so refreshed, and nobody will do the arithmetic. We don't know. For days, we don't know. The fog's little masterpieces are getting better at wearing us. What I can fight, I optimize. The demon birds own the air and my bullets are running out. So I do 2 things that feel obvious and turn out to be heresy. First, I paint golden light talismans directly onto bullets and arrowheads, anti-evil ammunition, patent pending, with 1 early product recall when a double talisman bullet cooks off in my hand and I catch my own gunshot 2-fingered like a dragonfly. 1 talisman per bullet, noted. Second, I pick up a longbow, and the wall does its thing. Shooting and archery turn out to be cousins, and Gus's crash course plus 1 dawn of methodical practice, 40 arrows to the first insight, 100 to autopilot, takes me from novice to Tier 1 in a morning, Tier 3 within days. The birds, meanwhile, run their own optimization. They grow, they learn feints, they stop attacking anyone who can hurt them and specialize in the ones who can't. And one noon, they spring a proper ambush at the mine mouth. I step out first and the sky falls on me. 14 demon birds behind a matriarch twice their size, her scream hitting my skull like a dropped anvil, her claws opening my shoulder through leather before my sword convinces her to disengage. Gus and Bram hit the dirt unconscious from the shriek alone. The flock parks itself over the only exit and waits, because we're the fish and the mine is the barrel. So we cheat. Kalen grinds a pace that smells like an opened artery. We dress a straw man in my recognizable leather armor, and 2 hours later, long enough for the birds to marinate in impatience, the scarecrow goes flying out of the cave mouth into the sunlight. 5 birds hit it mid-air like it owes them money. I come out under them accelerating, and a 3rd-tier archer's afternoon in a target-rich environment begins. 3 at the first whirl of my sword, a 4th on the landing, then Kalen's fire sign turning a diving wedge into comets. When the matriarch finally commits, plummeting at my exposed back, I've already budgeted for her. I spin with the falling swing and take her leg off at the hip, and Kalen's thrown sword splits her wing on the way up. The short version, 10 large demon birds die, the matriarch flees trailing parts, and I spend the walk home doing dissection notes. All female. Every single one, down to the small ones the size of babies, baby-faced in fact, in a way I choose not to examine emotionally. Which raises a question about how they reproduce that I file away and profoundly regret filing away later. The matriarch remembers. Wolves hold grudges, so, it turns out, do harpies, and her legs grow back, which is its own cheerful discovery. She comes at night with her diminished flock, twice, and the first raid is a butch's bill written in the dark. Birds diving out of the fog onto the watchmen, throats and eyes, 6 men dying in their comrades' arms while the crossbows shoot at after images. At the end of it, she circles the camp and drops something round from the clouds. It bounces once. It's ahead. The flock swoops in and out of the fog's edge, screeching, and I'd swear on both my lives that they're laughing. So the next time the bell rings, I'm already on the tower with a full quiver of Gus's proper fletched arrows, and it goes very differently. On the right-hand tower, a black-haired kid named Reyes puts a bolt through a diving bird's eye. His first kill, he punches himself in the chest in triumph, and then 3 more birds are on him faster than he can crank the crossbow. Jaws open wide enough to take his head, and he has just enough time to understand he's dead. Except the birds jerk backward mid-lunge, 2 of them sprouting thick fletching from their foreheads because I've been covering his tower from mine. He looks down through the dark, sees me holding the next 2 arrows between my fingers, watches them vanish from my hand, and 2 more birds drop out of the distance, and something catches fire behind his eyes that I recognize from a mirror. The mathematics of that night: 3 arrows to a draw, 20 birds attempting the raid, 2 escaping it. The matriarch pokes her head out of the fog exactly once, and of the 7 arrows I send back, 3 connect, 1 through the throat. Her scream turns into a gargle, and the fog swallows her for good. Reyes files a request to join whatever I am the next morning. Add him to the list next to Gus. The town is starting to grow its own soldiers, the hard way. The nights between raids turn into a 2-man academy in the watch cabin. Gus teaches me arrow making by firelight, plane the shaft smooth, drill for the tang, seat the hot arrowhead with a hiss of burnt wood, fletch it with fish glue and trimmed feathers, because a sniper who can't manufacture ammunition is 1 supply problem away from being a man with a stick. The wall obligingly makes it a skill, and within days I fletch as fast as my teacher, who takes it with the special pride of a man whose student is a menace. Sir, your time is worth more than mine. No, Gus, that's the point. Nobody's going to hand me my life pre-assembled. I pay the lesson back with a bigger one, the knight's breathing technique, taught to my first ever student, and in demonstrating the church's beginner method for him, the humble giant bear breathing technique, all brute force muscle and 0 elegance, I accidentally learn it myself mid-demonstration, a second warm current waking alongside the first. Then the discovery that actually matters. Training the crude technique feeds the advanced one. The 2 currents braid. Cross-training, in a world that worships specialization. I file it under roads. No road walked is ever wasted, and I intend to walk all of them. Between raids, the mail brings 2 pieces of bureaucracy that reshape the future. 1. My request for the 2nd stage of flame breath is denied. Advanced knowledge, the church replies, is taught only in major cities, only after a soul purity test, a scan for evil seeds planted in the subconscious, mandatory for anyone the church didn't raise from the crib. A world with dream-invading gods, it turns out, runs background checks on the soul itself. Fair. Terrifying, but fair. 2. The Archbishop's grand plan arrives. When the snow melts, every outlying town relocates to Rhine City, where the church is building a fortress for hundreds of thousands. Until then, hold. And to help us hold, the church grants us a permit and a recipe. The right to make our own extraordinary humans. Home-brewed advancement potions, brutal odds, paid for out of pocket. Reese hands me the recipe and the recruitment, all of it, with the weary delight of a manager finally allowed to delegate. I am now, among my other titles, this town's Academy of War, Staff of One, tuition, your life savings, and possibly your life. But before any of that, we have a body snatcher to catch. Reese brings me the tip like a math problem. Several patrolmen found drained of life in their sleep, and in each barracks, exactly 1 man who slept just fine. Old Garth. The magic bell never rang because the thing inside him learned to hide its soul under a human one. But a bell can be fooled, and a talisman can't. So we invite my favorite herb supplier in to settle a bill, and while he's distracted, I press a golden light talisman to his cheek like a fond uncle. The talisman lights up. Garth melts. Not dies, melts. Flesh sloughing into translucent blue-green mud around a suddenly bare skeleton. Because the real Garth has been dead for days, and I've been buying herbs from his digestion. The slime fights the way slime fights. Splitting, fainting, playing dead. One pseudopod quietly oozing toward the door crack while the rest of it keeps us busy. Reese and I burn it, carve it, and finally dissolve the stubborn last fistful in a bottle of holy water, and I pour longer than I need to, because that thing ate a man who called me great master and trusted the mountains all his life. The fog doesn't just kill us, it replaces us, and it's getting better at the craft. Noted with a shudder. Grief, as usual, converts to work. All those herbs Garth gathered, his last harvest, go into my crucible in a week-long brewing marathon. And somewhere in the middle of it, my herbalism crosses into Tier 4 and hands me a special effect called Heart of Herbs. I can now feel medicinal properties directly and swap substitute ingredients on the fly. Translation: recipes are now suggestions. 100% success on everything below transcendent grade. The Tier Up also deposits 2 new recipes directly into my head, and both are a tease. A firepower potion that supercharges flame-aligned training, the exact accelerant my breathing technique is starving for, requiring flame flowers from volcanic lands this kingdom doesn't have, and an ogre power potion needing tropical vines from the other end of the continent. My own skill list has started writing me a shopping itinerary, and every line on it says the same thing. The ceiling of this town is getting close, and the road out runs through Rhine City, which means it's time to pay a debt I owe to an 11-year-old. Kalen surrenders the recipe box like a man donating a kidney. A dark red case, its paint worn to gray wood, holding materials with names like Forked Tail Dragon Spinal Fluid and Albino Vampire's Tongue. And the green grass potion turns out to be a trilogy, not a drink. Mother's Tears to make the body malleable, Wild Rye Juice for perception and spellcraft, Fax Juice for resistance. Taken in strict order while the mutation rebuilds the child from the marrow out. I brew the set clean on the first pass, and then, because Heart of Herbs is whispering improvements at me, hold the Wolfsbane hotter, swap the hallucinogenic mushrooms, quench fast, I brew a second, upgraded set. Stronger Witcher at the end, worse road getting there, same coin flip. When I put both on the table, Kalen does something I've never seen him do. He lets the kid choose, plainly, dangers stated. And Elias, who watched monsters eat his family at 5, picks the stronger poison without a heartbeat's pause, and answers the unasked question while he's at it, about the exile, about resentment. If it weren't for you, I'd have died at 5 like everyone else. Whatever you become, to me, you're the hero who kept his promise. The scarred old wolf has to look away. Hunt monsters, Kalen tells him at the door of the sealed room, hanging his own wolf medallion around the boy's neck, but do not become a monster yourself. He kisses the kid's forehead, holds him 1 beat longer than composure allows, and steps out. Then he stands guard outside all night like a statue of every father in history, while inside, a child drinks 3 poisons in sequence and my heart-cleansing talismans hold his screaming mind together through the longest hours of his life. The first 3 hours are the worst, Kalen says, staring at the door. He doesn't sit down once. 3 days later, the door opens on a white-haired boy with fire cupped in his palm and a grin as wide as the doorframe. Elias Burrows, full Witcher, the first one minted outside the lost fortress in living memory, mutagen by me, sanity by my talismans, everything else by his own stubborn heart. He tiptoes up and whispers thanks for the papers. I ruffle the new white hair and don't trust my voice for a second. Gus goes through his own door the same week, and his door, I decide, opens in public. 2:30, the whole training roster lined up at the edge of the yard, because the first man through matters more than the man himself. If the blacksmith makes it, every strong back in this camp starts believing the ladder is real. I hand him the potion I brewed and improved the night before, and deliver the speech I've been polishing. The only thing that can stop you is yourself. He drinks it standing. His face goes crimson, veins rise like rope, his eyes bloom rabbit red. The potion's madness is real, and it opens the fight by making a fresh mortal leap 2 meters into the air to bring both forging hammers down on a second-tier transcendence head, which is either insanity or poetry. I bat him out of the sky and inform him, mid-air, that fancy stuff gets people killed. Then I calibrate. Enough pressure to squeeze, never enough to crush. A big 2-handed training sword in one hand ringing against his hammers for 40 minutes while the potion burns his candle at both ends. His blows fade. His arms shake. And I watch the crisis point arrive, the moment the fuel is gone and there's nothing left in the furnace but the man. And the man keeps swinging, eyes clearing as the red drains out of them, each strike heavier than the last, because he's found the thing on the far side of empty. Through my own blade, I feel that little flower opening moment, the seed of life, sprouting. His next blow nearly takes the sword out of my hand. I knock him across the yard, for form's sake. He flies a genuinely beautiful arc, and he comes up grinning through a face like a gargoyle's, and I point him at the prearranged feast. A man who watched his wife and children die runs right past glory to the food, exactly as designed, while the yard explodes. Gus, well done. Big brother, train us next. You can hear it in their voices. Extraordinary used to be a word for priests and nightmares. Now it's the blacksmith, and if it's the blacksmith, it might someday be them. The men of the camp cheer themselves hoarse. Last month, extraordinary was a word for priests and nightmares. Now it's Gus from the smithy, which means it might someday be them. Hope, I'm learning, is the one supply this town can't stockpile. It has to be demonstrated. Then the first snow falls, fat and quiet, and Reese and I stand under the eaves watching it bury the stakes and the scars. Elias bounces up in his new white hair to show off a palmful of fire. The priest gifts the newly minted Witcher 2 bottles of good holy water, diplomacy by beverage. Pock drifts to Spring, to Rhine City, and everyone discovers everyone else has somebody waiting there. Reese's little brother Elian, stranded in the city with his wife and kids when the fog came down. The snotty kid who used to follow me around has children now. My sister Tiffany, married 7 years, last seen 2 years ago by a body I hadn't moved into yet. My one blood relative on this continent, and I catch myself hoping, with a warmth that surprises me, that she's doing well. Kalen listens to all this family talk and goes quiet in the way of a man with no addresses left, until Elias bumps his shoulder. Teacher, we're like family. Yes, says the white wolf, collecting his student and heading into the snow. We are family. The demon birds are gone. The heathens haven't shown themselves since Salduo. The church reports the neighboring parish is quiet. It looks, if you squint, if you're new here, like winter might actually pass peacefully. The snow doesn't even have time to melt off my palm before the universe files its correction. Let the record show what walked into that final night, because the autumn built it rep by rep, and the wall kept the receipts. A swordsman with his foundation art ground past its limit into purple, and a cross sword close behind it. 2 breathing techniques braided into one furnace. A shield of golden light, a mantra against madness, a pouch of talismans, a demon hourglass full of borrowed seconds, and enough archery to empty a sky. Plus a vest of potions, 100 crossbowmen, 1 priest, 2 witchers, 1 blacksmith with a grudge, and a town that learned to fight because the alternative kept eating it. 4 months ago, none of that existed. The heathens spent their winter feeding a monster. I spent mine feeding numbers. The gods of this world can weigh the difference. It comes at evening prayer, mid-service, the church bells and the magic bell ringing together, the sound every soul in the camp has learned to translate as everything, everywhere, right now. The prayer hall starts to boil. I put my hands up, drop my voice into the register I've been growing all winter, and give 300 terrified people a shape to pour themselves into. Fighting men to the gate, Serafina commands the hall. The rest of you are the church's heartbeat, so beat. Then I sprint for my weapons through streets already echoing with wolf howls. The crud have come back for their revenge, and this time they brought the whole religion. First wave, mutated beasts, hundreds, driven at our walls as ammunition, deliberately spent, probing our range and our nerve, arranged in loose waves that walk out of the fog past their own bonfire-lit dead. From the left tower, I do the thing I've spent all winter becoming, an artillery piece with a heartbeat. Reyes feeds I loose, and the strongest beasts in each rush die with fletching in their eye sockets before they reach the stakes. A giant bear that could have gone extraordinary drops mid-charge and flattens a panther in its death spasm. At some point, Reyes stops handing me an arrow and realizes I've stopped shooting. The bundle he carried up is nearly gone, near 100 shafts, and below the tower the approach is carpeted. He looks at his own hands, then at the longbow he could barely draw last month, and swallows something that isn't fear. Somewhere down the wall, ordinary men who 3 months ago couldn't hold a pitchfork are working crossbows in ranks, spears bristling from the walkway, wounded beasts screaming on the stakes until someone leans out and finishes them. I have a heretical flash of pride in the middle of a battle. We built this. This town used to be a herd. Now it's a garrison. Then the drums start inside the fog, slow at first, then quickening like a pulse before violence, and I don't wait for the reveal. Every buff I own goes on at once. Potions down the hatch, mantra, golden light, the full herbalist's heresy loadout, the vest hitting the boards empty. Somewhere behind me in a cabin, Kalen is doing the Witcher version of the same ritual. 2 sword oils, 2 decoctions, a shield sign, muttering happily about being 50% deadlier than last time. Professionals don't fight fair, professionals fight prepared. The chanting comes next, ragged human voices in the mist synchronizing into one wild wall of sound, and then the cannon fodder makes way for the actual army. The boar comes first, our old friend from Zalduo, except someone's been feeding it towns. 5 meters now, tusks regrown at the root, spirit armor thick as fog, and the dent I remember in its face looks less like a wound and more like a grievance. Half the wall's defenders buckle, just meeting its belly full of eyes. It walks through our outer stakes, snapping them like breadsticks, hits the wall like a landslide, and simply removes the section it touches. Behind it pour the wolf cavalry, tribal warriors on dire wolves, painted red and white, bare arms in the freezing night, skull necklaces rattling, some of those skulls the size of a child's, none of them trophies you'd want explained. Their javelins punch through skulls at 40 paces. The first volley alone sweeps crossbowmen off the walkway in a clatter of bone and wood. At their head rides a giant on a white wolf with mismatched eyes, 3 skulls on his chest, which I will later learn is the tribal notation for, "Don't fight this one." I open my account with them from the tower. 3 arrows, 2 riders dead mid-charge, and the big man deflecting the third with a scimitar draw almost too fast to see. He marks me. I feel it happen, that cold clerical sensation of being written into someone's ledger under "kill personally." Then the wall breaks, the cavalry pours in, the fight goes to the streets, and the night dissolves into the truest chaos I've seen in either life. Reese meets the boar head-on in the breach, leaps from the tower, flail and shield blazing, and gets swatted across the camp like a golden shuttlecock, landing on the roof beside me with his dignity somewhere back at the wall. "I'll hold the big one," he growls, already climbing down for round 2. "You kill heathens." So I do. I work the rooftops first while there's still a sky to own. Draw, lead, loose. Riders punched off their wolves mid-gallop until the cavalry scatters into the lanes and the bow becomes furniture. Then it's alley work with the sword. Under a leaping wolf and up through its spine, rider and mount opened in one line, and the anatomy lesson I never asked for about exactly which angle unzips both. Past a lance, off a wall, through a throat. Bullet time on a slow drip, gold light over my skin, my blade never quite where their eyes say it should be. The heathens are first-tier warriors, brave as fire and armored in leather, and against a prepared second tier in the dark, that's a currency with no purchasing power. I find Gus in a doorway with 2 headless direwolves at his feet, face clawed, thigh soaked red, hammers still up. He claims 8 kills, maybe 10, and waves off my concern like I'm fussing over a splinter. My first student. I make him sit down and bandage anyway, and he obeys with the exact reluctance I'd have shown my own teacher, which I suppose is the curriculum working. and in a gap between wooden houses, my creditor with the skull necklace finds me. His name, the scrolls will tell us later, is Ryu, a great warrior of the Crude, one of the strongest second tiers his tribe ever ignited, and a collector. Those skulls on his chest aren't decor. Each one holds a defeated enemy's soul, sealed in by the tribe's witchcraft, and he's spent the night stalking the archer who shot his riders with the happy intention of adding a fourth. He's fought heretics before and knows our flaw by heart, trained, solid, and unwilling to die for a kill. So he wraps himself in a stealth technique, waits at a blind corner for the slippery archer to come to him, and swings a lifetime's masterpiece of an ambush at the back of my head. Any version of me from a month ago dies right there. This version has bullet time, a seventh sense's worth of paranoia, and a shield of golden light. I fold backward under the cut, feel it shave the gold off my ribs, and come up face to face with a man whose whole expression is a filing error. He swung his best at a blind man and hit air. We reset, 2 steps apart, and run the mutual arithmetic. He's stronger. His parry numbs my wrist to prove it. I'm faster. And in his eyes, I can see the bet forming, the one that's won him every duel of his life. You might land first, boy, but do you dare trade your life for mine? He roars and offers the trade. I take it at a discount. I charge straight in, throat for face, exactly the suicide he's inviting. And in the last half meter, I accelerate past everything his eyes have promised him about my speed. His snarl doesn't even have time to change. My sword goes in through his war cry and out the back of his skull, and the collector joins his collection. His white wolf gets one howl of grief and one charge of vengeance, and joins him on my blade. I stand over the two of them breathing hard, sand almost spent, and out loud, to nobody, my mouth says, "Is this wolf meat still edible?" 2 lifetimes of instinct, and it's all logistics. I've stopped being surprised by me. A word about who we're actually fighting, pieced together later from scrolls and corpses. The Crud tribes, the heathens the church broke 1,000 years ago and chased into the mountains, got a divine revelation from their great witch doctor. The sunken city of their gods is rising, the masters are waking, and it's payback season. More than 10 war bands were dispatched to begin the revenge. Ours drew the shortest straw. The band whose god project we wounded on its first outing, led in the field by the acolyte Iana, the feathered woman of Zalduo, who has spent the winter feeding her blood-soul beast 2 entire towns to evolve it, and who is, at this exact moment in the battle, hovering outside our walls watching the fight through the eyes of a demon bird. What she sees makes her glow. The heretic priest exhausted, the white-haired swordsman bleeding, her beast barely scratched. And best of all, Ryu, the tribe's arrogant great warrior who never took her seriously, lying dead in an alley with his skull necklace. Which means every drop of tonight's glory now pours into her cup alone. Her beast is one massacre away from advancing to the great witch doctor's own rank. She spurs her bear through the broken wall to collect her promotion in person. Timing, Iana, timing. Meanwhile, the main event is trying to kill my mentor. Reese has been holding the boar alone, flame guard blazing, a one-man wall between 5 meters of god-fed pork and 3,000 people. And by the time Kaylin and I converge on him, all 3 of us wear the same knowledge. We break its armor now, together, or it grinds us down and eats the town at leisure. So the priest plants his shield and takes the charge standing, takes it, the whole avalanche, and doesn't move, while Kaylin and I hammer the spirit armor from both flanks, sword light and witcher steel, until the gray shell cracks like ice on a pond. The mind scream of its breaking armor staggers everyone but me. The Qingxin mantra earns its rent, and in that gap, I bury my sword to the hilt in the monster's belly, twist, and slap a fistful of golden light talismans onto the wound. Golden fire meets stolen souls. The boar tries its old trick one last time, mouth gaping to inhale the battlefield's dead, but its belly is a burst sack now, and the souls it sucks in stream straight back out through the wounds like water through a torn net. It shrieks, turns to flee, and detonates from the inside out. 100 trapped spirits erupting like startled birds, corrosive blood eating pockmarks into the priest's shield and my armor and the ground. Which is the exact moment Iana rides through the breach to collect her promotion, and instead watches her life's work rain down on her in pieces. The blood soul beast wasn't just her weapon. It was soulbound to her. Its advancement was going to be her advancement, a blood pact her tribe's witch doctors perfected over centuries, and its death hits her down that same wire like a lightning strike up a kite string. She doesn't die of it. Worse, she loses everything except the power. Her mind goes first, then her shape, the petite acolyte swelling into 2.5 meters of muscle and tusks and thrashing face tendrils, her escort recoiling from what their holy woman has become, and what's left of the Crud expedition's command structure charges me straight down the lane, jaws unhinging as she comes. Never catch an opponent's weapon with your mouth. I give her the sword, hilt deep, point first, straight down the throat as she bites, sidestep the wreckage of her momentum, and let physics finish the sentence. The most dramatic entrance of the night, and it lasts 4 seconds. Her escort's morale dies with her, in the most instructive way possible. 6 riders watch their holy woman turn monster and get gutted, and their leader makes the reasonable battlefield call, fall back and find Ryu, the great warrior, the tribe's unbeatable, and somewhere in the lanes they find him, folded around my swordwork with his white wolf beside him, 3 skulls on a dead man's chest. Whatever holds a warband together snaps right there. 4 die on Elias's new fire, and a half-dead Kalen's old spite. The last 2 flee into a fog gone finally, blessedly drumless, carrying home the only report the mountains will ever get. Then Rhys, barely able to stand, makes us sweep the battlefield for vengeful spirits before anyone sleeps, because a night of this much death is exactly the compost that grows another body integration, and one of those per lifetime is enough. I demonstrate the technique by stabbing a burning blade through an innocent-looking plank and harvesting the shriek underneath. Kalen watches the spirit aura flutter down, announces that suddenly he's full of energy, and drags Elias off to teach him ghost hunting. After negotiating his rate mid-cleanup, settling on equal shares in gold spirit coins, and happily waiving his combat bounty in exchange. Some men pray after battle, ours invoices. The priest kneels on his shield in the wreckage and prays anyway, for all of it, and I leave him to the part of the job I can't help with. Morning does the accounting nobody can haggle. Gus delivers it standing at attention with his bandages seeping, voice flat the way men go flat when the numbers are people. 206 heathens and 163 direwolves dead outside the walls, 732 of ours dead inside them, 312 wounded, a third of the town gone in one night, and fewer than 100 able-bodied men left standing. Half the huts flattened where the boar went through them, families sleeping in shifts in what's left. We burn our dead and skin theirs. The wolf meat test clean. Kalen runs the trials himself, dunking samples in holy water and golden talisman water and finding no reaction, then turning to the camp with a showman's grin. Today the head chef shows off, everyone gets an extra meal, and I spend the evening at 6 great cauldrons doing the one form of magic everybody understands. Wolf sinew set aside for bowstrings, marrow into the stock, and the whole camp eats hot stew until their bowls squeak, some of them scalding their mouths because waiting is beyond them, some crying into it, all of them coming back for more. I watch Grief and Dinner negotiate a ceasefire in 300 faces at once. My cooking skills description once told me food is more than enjoyment. This is what it meant. The victory feast for the inner circle is quieter. 5 extraordinary humans, 1 nun, and 1 small girl at a table groaning with pan-fried ribs and skewers, Lyra biting her tongue twice and refusing to slow down. Count the survivors of that table by what they were in autumn. A condemned prisoner, an exiled priest, a disgraced monster hunter, an apprentice with no future, and a blacksmith marked for execution. The Fawn took a lot from this town. It also, in its way, ran the world's cruelest recruitment drive. Afterward, on the wall, I overhear the town's 2 old officials talking about me. Captain Gareth, patrol chief and professional survivor, marvels that the herbalist's dull boy became this. And Rhys answers with a line from his own bishop's graduation speech, one he clearly never put down. Ordinary people use 1/10 of what they are, and the extraordinary path is just the long discovery of the rest. If a person unleashes all their potential, how are they different from the divine? Gareth laughs it off. He'll stick to cheering from behind the priest, thanks. 2 philosophies of the coming dark, side by side on a wooden wall. Climb, or find someone climbing and hold their coat. This town is lucky. Most towns won't get a coat to hold. The spoils come to me and Rhys in a quiet room afterward, sorted across the table like a museum of bad decisions. Spirit aura by the bagful, twice last time's harvest. 3 crystallized evil eyes from the boar's carcass, worth coins to any warlock. Several bone-white skulls with black vortexes turning slowly in their eye sockets. Soul skulls, dead men's spirits imprisoned by heathen necromancy, bound for the church's bounty office and, I dearly hope, a proper release. 1,000 javelins and scimitars for Gus to melt into crossbow bolts, and animal hide scrolls in the occult tongue, the tribe's beast-taming manual, which the priest promises to translate in duplicate, 1 copy for me, 1 for Kalen, because in this economy even loot comes with coarse materials. And 1 casualty of my own. My star-patterned steel sword, the one that opened a werewolf, a great warrior, and a god-fed boar, is dead of honorable causes, corroded to scrap by the monster's blood, its edge gone dull as regret no matter how I oiled it. Rhys runs his fingers down the ruined blade like a man reading a casualty list, then rummages out his spare weapon and hands it over as a loaner, a warhammer, tungsten-forged, head like a building block. He can't resist the sales pitch. In the church's system, priest and knight pair blunt and blade to cover every kind of monster. So why shouldn't one man carry both? I heft the hammer. It's absurd. It's heavy. It's not a sword. Somewhere in my head, the wall quietly opens a new tab. What follows is the quietest chapter of the winter, and quietly, the most important one, the season I become a blacksmith. It starts as errands. The camp needs arrowheads, Gus needs an assistant, and I need to understand the hammer Rhys loaned me, so I plant myself in the smithy, the iron-eating beast glaring litigiously from its corner, and start swinging. Ore to ingot, ingot to arrowhead, the same motion 10,000 times, power flowing up from the calves through the hips into the strike, and the golden wall does what the golden wall does. Hammering technique, Tier 2. Forging, Tier 1. Gus discovers that his new assistant does 3 days of of work in one and takes to manning the bellows with the harried expression of a man shoveling coal into a runaway engine. The hammer technique stalls 1 point short of its tier for days. Kalen's fencing is too light to press it, until I realize what it's missing, another heavy hitter. So I challenge Reese, shield and flail against hammer and shield, and request specifically that he hit me with everything. The resulting duel is two steel-plated bulls meeting at a full run, repeatedly, on purpose. The first collision fills my skull with bees. The second teaches me what a flail to the shield actually costs a spine. We hammer at each other across the training yard while Gus and the trainees evacuate to a safe distance. And somewhere in the exchange, my understanding clicks over. A sword is a line, but a hammer is a verdict. Slow, honest, and utterly final if it lands. My blows start flowing, all out and holding back, braided together, and when the warm current rises through me at the peak of exhaustion, I spin the great square hammer like a windmill and knock the flail clean out of the hand of a man with 20 years of training. The weapon flies across the yard and buries itself in the wall. The trainees, too young to know better, burst into applause. And Reese, dear, mercantile, unsinkable Reese, stands there looking at his empty hand and then does the most honest thing I've ever watched a man do. He goes for a walk, alone, and interrogates the bitter thing lodged under his sternum until it gives up its name. So this is jealousy, he tells the empty street, delighted, like a naturalist identifying a new beetle. I can be jealous too. Is this what those men felt about me in seminary? And having named it, he laughs it out of his system, turns around, and comes back to help me get stronger. Because that's the difference between my mentor and every boss I had in my old life. He audits his own heart with the same rigor he audits everyone else's ledgers. I don't hear about any of this until much later. What I get that evening is a priest bursting into the smithy, seizing a one-handed sword off my finished rack, flicking it to hear it ring, and going very still. Where, he says carefully, did these patterns come from? I'd assumed the wavy cloud marks on my recent blades were a quenching quirk. They are not. They're the signature of extraordinary grade equipment, gear so well made it develops natural patterns, fish scale on armor, clouds and lightning on blades, stronger than its materials have any right to be. Master smiths in the capital chase that grade for decades and light candles when they hit it once. I've been mass-producing it by accident and letting Gus melt the surplus down for scrap iron. Reese's face, as this sinks in, is a symphony. Then the merchant boots up behind his eyes, and by midnight we have a business plan. I forge, he enchants, at a friendly 20% off market because, brothers or not, this is Reese and Rhine City's armor market gets a problem it doesn't know about yet. First order of business, the impossible replica. His own enchanted armor, church-issued, second-tier priests only, its inner magic circuit a guild secret no outsider has ever seen, was mangled in the boar fight. So I do to it what no sane craftsman would, I grind it to powder. 8 days with steel files, 22 of them worn dead, shaving the armor down layer by layer and drawing a cross-section at every step, building the secret blueprint back up from sawdust like running a 3D printer in reverse. Somewhere in the middle, I stop registering the outside world entirely. Gus later reports that I drew for 18 hours straight and, at one point, absent-mindedly ate a page of my notes. I dispute nothing. The trance ends at 2 in the morning, with a complete forging diagram in my hands and a priest speechless over it, correcting the arcane circuit details with the reverence of a man annotating scripture. The replica works. Flames bloom across the new breastplate when Reese feeds it holy power, indistinguishable from the original, and he laughs like a shareholder at the reading of a very good will. I stamp the finished piece with a maker's mark, 3 triangles, a little mountain, and decline to explain to him that where I come from, that's the universal symbol for sturdy, reliable, and suspiciously affordable. And the wall, closing out the winter's ledger, hands me the graduation gifts, hammering, limit, with a crushing blow effect that stacks damage past what the physics should allow. Cross-sword, tier 4, humming with a vibration that shears through armor like a tuning fork through glass. And the golden light charm, fat on a season of prayer hall meditation, crosses 40,000 points and finally gives me the thing every mage envying warrior dreams about, the Yang Flame technique. A talisman, activated and thrown, that flies like a thrown card and detonates in golden fire at 30 meters. I test it on my bedroom wall, scorch a hole 2 fingers deep in the stone, and stand in the smoke doing arithmetic about the years I spent lamenting my lack of ranged attacks. The golden light charm was never a support skill. It was a main gun with a long ignition sequence, and I've been complaining about the weight. Then the snow on the south-facing roofs starts to drip, and the church's pigeons bring the marching orders. The escort from the city arrives in 2 weeks. Zacktown is leaving Zacktown. The whole camp converts to departure logistics, flatbed carts hammered together, keepsakes triaged from necessities, a town learning to fit its history into what a handcart can pull, and everyone settles their accounts. Kalen settles his in bulk. He arrives at my door doing the hand-rubbing gesture of a man about to negotiate and buys 450 talismans, his and Elias's traveling insurance, and very nearly his entire fortune in gold spirit coins. In exchange for the last of my discount goodwill, he throws open his trade secrets box, the Witcher sword oil recipes, 8 formulas for greasing blades with specialized death, of which I buy the 3 that matter: spirit oil, ghoul oil, relict oil. After a haggling session conducted with the warmth of 2 card sharps who genuinely like each other. He thinks he's fleecing me because the recipes circulate freely among witchers. I think I'm fleecing him because Heart of Herbs will improve every one of them by spring. We shake hands, both delighted, both right, and I spend my last quiet days on the most unexpected project of the winter. I learned to make friends with animals. The Heathen's Captured Taming Manual, translated in Reese's neat hand, turns out to work, and after a day of hunting the woods for candidates that aren't deformed, I come home with a crow. Red-eyed, feathers with a cold blue sheen, mean as a tax audit. I feed it talisman water, watch the madness drain out of its eyes meal by meal, and christen it Fugan, after a god's raven from a world it will never see. A black lynx kitten follows days later, Buster, who takes his medicine like a champ and my furniture like a personal enemy. Taming becomes a skill. The skill becomes a habit. The habit becomes 10 minutes every evening, with a cat on my chest and a crow judging us both from the wardrobe, which is the closest thing to peace this year has offered. The morning we leave, the whole town walks out through the gate we defended, carts creaking, children riding on baggage, the sacred flame left burning over an empty fortress like a lighthouse for whoever comes next. I ride at the back of the column, with a crow on my shoulder and a kitten in my bag, and I make myself turn around and look. The jail I woke up in, the alley where my first family died, the training yard, the smithy, the wall with its scars, the graves. 4 months, 2 lifetimes, 1 town that taught a dead man how to be dangerous. Here's where part 1 closes the books, so let's count what's in the vault. A dead programmer woke up in a jail cell with a demon in his chest and a bill for his own exorcism. 4 months later, the demon is a pocket watch that stops time. The bill, the 100 gold shields I solemnly swore, as a matter of philosophy, never to repay, got paid in full, early, with a tip, by a deadbeat who discovered he'd accidentally bought the one thing in this world worth its invoice. The debt became a partnership, half a church, split down the middle with a priest who once billed me for salvation and now hands me his own weapons like a brother. The town that was going to burn me built its walls around my training yard, and the men I trained held those walls against an army sent by a god. Sent, not spent. That's the part that walks with the column like a shadow on the snow. Iana's tribe dispatched more than 10 warbands to spread their mother goddess's revenge, and ours was only the nearest. Somewhere in those mountains, a great witch doctor is waiting for a victory report that will never come, and the fog that carried their drums is still rising, patient as interest. And there's the other ledger, the one only I can read, the hourglass in my chest, quiet and obedient and fed, a demon on a leash in a world that burns people for less, the golden wall, climbing. A cure for corruption that I've been handing out like party favors to a werewolf, a blacksmith, and a boy. A miracle in a world where miracles get inventoried, priced, and hunted. And I've already sold too many samples to too many people who talk. Ahead, at the end of this road, Rhine City is waiting. The big church, the big market, the soul purity test they run on every stranger. My sister's address, somewhere in its 100,000 chimneys, and every fiancé in it convinced it already knows what's coming up the road from the provinces. None of them have heard of the herbalist's kid from Zacktown. They will.